joining us from different parts of the world. It is my honor and my pleasure to welcome you all on the 5th International Online Conference, Corpora and Discourse. We are really delighted to host a diverse community of researchers, educators, like everybody who gathered here today. Your participation embodies our commitment to fostering international collaboration, sharing cutting-edge research, and building a vibrant academic work. First and foremost, I would like to update you on some general procedures. Well, just a second, doesn't work. All right, so a couple of words about the agenda, about the procedures, and about the requirements. We start with the keynotes, and the keynote slots are up to 15 minutes. Every speech will be followed by the questions and answers session, around 5 minutes, so you are most welcome with all your comments and questions. For your convenience, on the screen there will be a timer, so you can manage your time, you can follow the procedure. Well, you started with it, Nicole. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, there may be some cases or events of air alerts. So if yes, safety protocols in the event of an air alert like that. If you are non-resident, we are just proceed with the conference. If you are a resident of Ukraine, please make sure that you are in a safe place. And if needed, you stay in shelter or safe place until authorities announce the all clear signal and we resume our work. A couple of words about moderators. 3 people will be presenting this conference to you: Олена Москаленко, Тетяна Семигнівська, that is me, and Tetiana Anoshkova, who will join us very soon. And just maybe now at this moment, I hope no technical issues arise. If they do, just feel free to ask me to help you with the presentation or with whatever. Well, and I guess that is it with some general procedure. If you have any questions and comments, you're most welcome. If not, then we would like to once again officially greet you at the conference. And first of all, the floor is given to Zoya Korneva, Doctor of Education, Professor, Dean of the Faculty of Linguistics of National Technical University of Ukraine, Igor Sikorsky, Kyiv Polytechnic Institute. You are given the floor.
Thank you very much. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really pleased to welcome you all to the 5th International Online Conference of the Department of English for Engineering #1, Corpora and Discourse. Before we kickstart the event, I would like to express my gratitude towards you all who sincerely contributed to this event in order to make it a success, and in particular to Professor Olena Moskalenko, our inspirer and our unrivaled professional. My dear friends, this event wouldn't have been possible without the support of each and everyone present here. Language is more than just a means of communication. It is a powerful tool that shapes our thoughts, emotions, understanding of the world. In today's globalized world where borders are increasingly blurred and cultures intermingle, the role of languages becomes vital in bridging gaps and facilitating effective communication. But it is not easy to promote peaceful communication and competences for dialogue when an aggression war is taking place in our country. Nevertheless, cultivating the capacity to enter into this positive dialogue is more necessary than ever. One day, hopefully very soon, the war will finish and people will have to start talking again, rebuilding not only the devastated physical infrastructure, but the foundations of a new culture of peace. The role of languages is fundamental to reconstruct the capacity for dialogue, to build this new time of peace. Being here with you today is a perfect way for all of us to take action in order to fulfill that mission, specifically to reinforce language studies. In the face of violence and uncertainty, education stands as a beacon of hope, offering us the tools to navigate through challenges, advocate for peace, and rebuild our communities. In this respect, resilience and determination is the means to transcend our current reality and shape a better future for ourselves and our societies. Sustained commitment to educational initiatives during war is crucial to ensure long-term impact. By investing in education, we invest in the future of individuals, communities, paving the way for a brighter future. Education undoubtedly is a source of hope, resilience, empowerment amidst the darkest times. You are in the front lines of these impending changes, and it's high time for all of us to regroup, to exchange ideas, to be exposed to cutting-edge research. We feel that we are not alone in this predicament, and this gives us the strength to persevere. I wish you all an edifying and transformative conference. Good luck, my dear friends.
All right, thank you so much for such an inspiring speech. I believe that our conference will be fruitful and well, insightful for everyone. Thank you so much. And we proceed with welcome addresses. Now the floor is given to Artur Godmanyan, Doctor of Philological Sciences, Professor, Vice Rector for Educational Work.
Oh, thank you very much, dear Tatiana. Good morning, my dear colleagues of the Faculty of Linguistics in National Technical University of Ukraine, Sікорський Kyiv Polytechnic Institute, esteemed guests, distinguished speakers, valued participants, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Rector of State University of Information and Communication Technologies, the English Language Department, it is my great pleasure, a warm and heartfelt welcome to each and every one of you to the 5th International Online Conference, Corpora and Discourse. I'm truly delighted to take part in such a diverse and talented gathering of professionals, researchers, and thought leaders from different parts of this country and the world who have come to this year's conference is focused on the theme Corpora and Discourse. This theme reflects our collective commitment to Corpus method research, digital engagement, intellectual encounters and language in defense sector, medical interpreting and phonetic deviations in dubbing, chat, GP, and natural language processing, and many other interesting and current topics. Today, you will have the opportunity to participate in a rich and dynamic program, including insightful keynote and valuable presentations. I do hope it will encourage us to fully immerse ourselves in the discussions, share the ideas and that will shape the future of our field. Before it begins, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our dedicated keynote speakers and partners whose invaluable support has made this event possible. A special thank you also goes to the tireless efforts of our organizing committee and volunteers and dedication, especially for my dear Dean Zoe Korneva, the head of the department, and my dear colleagues. I'm sure to wishing a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. That is a wish shared by so many around the world, especially right now. We're not alone. Many people strength and solace in that belief. Thank you for being here, and I wish you all an inspiring and successful conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your support, for your aspiration, also for outlining so many key ideas which we are going to discuss today. We are very happy to see you here, to have you here at the conference. All right, and one more, one more welcome address. Now it is on behalf of our department. The floor is given to Olena Moskalenko, Doctor of Education, Professor, Head of Department of English for Engineering, #1, Faculty of Linguistics and National Technical University of Ukraine, Ігор Сікорський, Kyiv Polytechnic Institute. You are given the floor.
Thank you. So, dear academics, colleagues, researchers, friends, all involved. So it is my great pleasure to welcome you at our 5th International Conference on Corpora and Discourse. As the acting head of the Department of English for Engineering, I am honored to open this conference that gathers scholars, practitioners from around the whole world. So what is all going to be about? So what is this conference about? This conference has always been about building bridges between universities, partners, and of course, research. And today, these connections are so important and essential as we continue to broaden our understanding of language, not only as language as it is, but as a tool of multicultural collaboration and technology through interdisciplinary research. And I warmly encourage you, please be active participants, ask questions, share your ideas, and of course, engage with each other's work. Your contributions mean a lot to us. They enrich our knowledge. Let today's conference be the space where we not only exchange ideas and share experience, but also challenge perspectives and spark collaboration. I hope that this conference will strengthen our partnerships, generate meaningful dialogues, and support innovative research that moves our field forward. So, dear participants, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that some more people will join us a little later, and I wish you an inspiring and productive conference. So now, please, I will give the floor to the moderator of our conference, Associate Professor Tatiana Semeniewska. Welcome, everyone, and I wish you fruitful cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we proceed with the keynote speakers. Well, we expect, I believe, meaningful discussions, opportunity to learn from each other. I believe that this conference will be insightful, productive, enjoyable for everyone. Please do not forget that you will be appreciated for any kind of comments, questions, and active participation. And I believe we can proceed with the first speaker, and the floor is given to Meriem Beloucif, Assistant Professor, Uppsala University, Sweden.
Thank you so much. And thanks a lot for having me today. It's really an honor to be presenting here. I'm going to share my slides first. If that's okay. I've sent a request because I think I can't, as long as you're sharing, I won't be able to share, I think.
Yeah, I should close.
Thank you.
Tatiana, you're still sharing your screen. Just stop sharing the screen. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it well.
All right. Can you see the full screen or can you see the presenter screen?
No, the presented screen, if it is possible. Can you just, F5 should be useful, I guess.
I will try to end the show. Sorry. And I would just do. It does not want to.
Well,
Sorry.
anyways, even if it is this way, it's possible to read from the screen. We can see it well.
Okay, I try to do something else. I try to do 100%.
Well, what about F5? If you tap on F5, does it help or not?
I don't have that option.
Oh, you haven't got that option. Then sorry.
Yeah, I'll just view.
Meriem, down below there
Slideshow.
is, I'm sorry, there is an image of a book open. So down below the screen, if you, yeah, that's right. So if you put the screen on,
Then it
once,
actually
yeah.
does. Oh yeah.
Yep. Oh,
Now,
okay. Now it
Oh,
works.
it's okay.
I gotten used to Zoom. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna start right away.
It's okay.
All right. So I'm going to be talking about low resource languages, natural language processing a little bit, and the challenges when it comes to data collection. All right. So data collection when I talk about data collection, I talk data collection for the world's languages. I'm going to be talking a little bit what I mean by that. And then when we talk about building resources in general, we talk about, I mean, it depends which perspective, right? So we can be linguists, then it's a different perspective. But I'm going to be talking from an AI researcher's perspective, which is basically what I am. And AI models learn from data. They actually capture patterns from data. They capture relationships from data. That's why we need to talk a lot about data, what kind of data we're having. And why are we having a talk about AI in general? Because AI is everywhere. So there has been basically in the news that AIs can be doctor now because ChatGPT passed the gold standard in the US medical exam. Teachers are urged to embrace AI and robots. So there's quite a lot of a lot of talk about AI in general. Because we are living in what I like to call the AI hype. So when we talk about AI hype, as someone who works in the field, I'm a computational linguist, so I work both with computers and linguistics. So this AI talk is basically what we call generative AI talk. And if we try to locate generative AI somewhere, then, so I have generative AI here, which is models that create new content. And then these are basically what we call large language models. So generative AI, an instance of them is large language models, and then ChatGPT and Gemini and all these models are actually the tip of the iceberg. So basically they are an instance of large language models. And as someone who works in the field a little bit, I can tell you that there is a lot behind that. So generative AI is basically just a subset of what we call deep learning. Deep learning in the computer science world is actually an instance of what we call machine learning. So deep learning is basically using neural networks to try to learn. And machine learning is different paradigms. Deep learning is one of them, but we have different paradigms. So algorithms that learn from data. This is what we call machine learning. So data is important because not only generative AI is based on data, but any machine learning is actually based from data. And of course, this is in the broader part of machine learning, is part of what we call AI. So AI is not just generative AI, but generative AI is a teeny tiny dot in the AI world. So for the rest of this talk, I'm going to be focusing more on large language models. So generative AI, large language models, more specifically. So we have a lot, like I guess most of us, or maybe all of us, has used like ChatGPT or something similar, right? So large language models are so popular right now because we have this idea that they are so efficient. Why are they so efficient? They're basically efficient because they rely on four most components: efficient algorithms, massive data, scalable resources, and supercomputers. So you need to be able to have access to the cloud, for example. This is what's called scalable resources. You need supercomputers. This is what we need to be able to have these efficient algorithms learn from this massive data. These supercomputers are what we call GPUs, for instance. So we need the right infrastructure, we need efficient algorithms, and this data. So I like to talk a lot about limitations of LLMs. I've chosen here an example in French. So I've tried English to French machine translation, and this is Google, and Google is based on the same type of algorithm that ChatGPT is based on. And I've tried The Nurse Helped Me. I will never forget what they did when I was so weak and tired. And here I used they because it's non-binary, and I wanted to use something non-binary to see. The French translation gave me N. I've tried The Lawyer, and then I got il, which is masculine. L is feminine. So il is masculine. And then I tried to change to the scientist, and I got again masculine. And I tried the artist, and then I got feminine. So you see what I'm getting. And then I tried with ChatGPT. I'm from Algeria, and we speak different languages. And one of the language we speak is Algerian Darija. It's different than Arabic. And I tried to say, can you write something in Algerian Arabic, it's our own dialect, that someone can use to go on a weekend to buy fruits and veggies in the farmer's market. I got something like that. I put the English translations just for reference. So what I got here, everything in red is wrong. Everything is red, in this is wrong. Most of it is borrowed from Arabic. We do not speak Arabic, we speak our own language. So most of the things that ChatGPT gave me are actually Arabic, or they are basically a sort of, we don't use Arabic numbers, for example, or they're just wrong grammar. But what I actually put here in yellow is one of the things that I found super important. Because basically there is here a person that goes to the market to buy potatoes, and then they ask how much are potatoes. And here they're kind of cheap, actually, given the Algerian market. And then they bargain to make potato the price lower, and nobody does that. So there's a sort of stereotype in here that is added, that ChatGPT adds, just because we're talking about a different culture. So the problems that we've seen before are basically relating to bias, incorrect words, stereotyping, incorrect linguistic diversity, fluency problems. So all these problems happen when you don't have good data. But the first part I'm going to talk about a little bit is these efficient algorithms. So the model is actually goes through two phases. When we are trying to use it, we do an inference. When ChatGPT is working on it, or OpenAI is working on it, then they do training. So during the training, the model tries to learn a sort of correlations. And these correlations happen between different words. So if you have a lot of data, there could be a sort of attention, what we call attention, or a correlation happening, that the model associates vacation with children because the data contains a lot of instances of children and vacation happening together, or children and park happening together. So this is how the model actually learns, because it has a lot of data and it sees different words appearing together quite a lot of times. So the word vacation and park would have a high correlation as well. And then there and the, because there is no semantic meaning between them, they would have a low correlation. And this is how the models actually learn from data. So during the training, what happens? You have this large language model, and it tries to fill in the gap. This is what we call the mask that you see here. So we have during their vacation, the children like going to the, and then the model tries to predict different things. And then it has a sort of probability over that. They try to go into the, let's say that in the first instance, when the model is learning, it tries to predict hospital. But then what happens next? What happens next is, because I'm doing training, I actually have the correct word that needs to be predicted. And in this case, so during the learning, the model says, hey, I predicted hospital, that was wrong. It's actually park, I can see it. So it kind of computes a sort of error, and it does back propagation so that the model learns from its errors, right? So you see that after some point, there could be a correlation between vacation and children and park, because they do occur a lot together. So during the testing and the inference later, the model, even though this is a different sentence, the model would have actually learned the sort of correlation between mask and children, between park and children. So then, for this different sentence, because they have vacation and children, the model would predict correctly park. So basically, whatever the model sees, it actually outputs it. So it has garbage in, then garbage out. That's why we say that these models are relying on data, quite a lot of data. So when we talk about generative AI, it does not exhibit any intelligence, but it processes quite a lot of text. So when it comes to massive data, we have basically, language is basically represented by data. Cultures are represented by data. We have quantity, quality. It has to be like diverse data. We have to have a lot of ethical considerations when it comes to building data. And this is where there's a gap, because most of the world's languages are actually low resource languages, whereas most of these generative AI models are actually built on high resource languages, like English and German. Ukrainian is actually between the medium and the low, so there's quite a lot of work that needs to be done in the Ukrainian language as well. There are 7,100 world languages, and Google Translate, for example, takes into consideration only 200 of them, 290 of them. So you see that there is quite a lot of work, and most of the languages are actually low resource languages. There was a study recently that looked at ChatGPT, and they saw that ChatGPT basically is conformed to what we say the weird framework, like Western, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic societies. So there's quite a lot of bias when it comes to that. And the study showed that for questions like this one, which would be basically in which would be the next most important, high level of economic growth, making sure this country has a strong defense forces, seeing that people have more to say about how things are. So if all the answers that ChatGPT gives are basically towards US, for example, then that's a problem because it's not having a more distributed and fair representation. And this reminds me a little bit what Pierre Bourdieu, who's a social scientist, says, that language is really important. It's not just a means of communication. And I think this is what also the organizer said in the beginning. This is really, really important. There's more into language than we anticipate. So I have a paper basically that was recently published, and that was about what should we do to collect good data. And you can check, I can share my slides later. We reached out and did a survey and reached out to annotators and researchers and the people who speak the language. And we saw that we asked them about their affiliations, what they think is important and what is lacking. And we have more than 70 low resource languages speakers that were part of the survey. And most of the people worked basically in academia, and some of them both academia and industry, and most of them were involved in the data creation process and the data annotation. And we saw that people most of the times actually work on languages because it's their language, and they find that interesting and important to be added. But what we saw was actually that there's not a lot of data to be collected. There is a big misalignment between what the community needs and what is out there. Before building technology, we need to ask communities if they need this technology. And we noticed that people are rarely paid. So if people are rarely paid when they collect data, they will not collect good data because it's not a good, they can't do a good work. We came up with a set of recommendations, as more in the paper, but we came up with a set of recommendations, and the first one is center the people when you need to do any work. And we need to be fair and give credits. But one of the things, I just want to finish with that, one of the things that we actually focused on quite a lot is cross-discipline collaboration. So if we want to weird LLMs, if we want to move beyond this peak of hype, we need to be able to talk to linguists, to people involved in education, to experts from different fields, to social scientists, to cognitive scientists, in order to build models that basically are able to depict and represent every one of us. And this is the only way we kind of move towards this nice plateau here and move away from the peak. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Wow, it was just absolutely amazing. I like how you gave a new perspective on LLM and generative AI altogether. I believe that it will excite some interest among our presenters about, scientists, everybody, colleagues from all the countries. So if you have any questions, you are most welcome. Wow, and you have got perfect timing. Thank you so much. It was just 15 minutes. All right. So, do you have any questions? Maybe I will start with the first one, if you don't mind. Just I listened to that you combine knowledge in teaching linguistics, right? Philology, I believe. Or is it linguistics, right? And also it's a combination of artificial intelligence. Do you apply any of interesting models in just teaching in teaching the linguistics, in teaching some languages? Like, do you have students? I believe you're working with the students, right? So do you allow your students to use any generative AI, like, I do not know, ChatGPT, maybe Perplexity, maybe Copilot, because here students use Copilot a lot. And do you restrict their usage, or do you explain like you should use it as a tool? Maybe just a couple of words about how you try to incorporate this AI into the teaching process. Thanks a lot.
It's difficult, right? It's because we want the students to be critically thinking and critically analyzing things and be able to learn. But on the other hand, I felt like I've always said to my students, you can use these tools as long as you're upfront with it, and as long as you tell me where you use it, and as long as you criticize it. Please criticize it. Use it to criticize it. I try to make exercises where it's difficult to use these tools.
Right.
So I could basically kind of notice, but I noted with my students that if I say I'm really critical of these tools, so if I try to push them to be critical of these tools, they would use them, but they would use them also in a critical way.
Right.
And of course you can't stop everybody from cheating, right? You cannot ever stop people from cheating if they want to cheat. But for us, we try to really push them towards critically assessing and critically, like using them critically, basically.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, maybe some more questions. You're welcome. Linda.
Thank you so much for this wonderful and very, very topical issue for all of us as educators, right? So I would like to clarify some information. You mentioned about the sample of participants, 81, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
Were they from all over the world? How did you balance them according to maybe nationalities, gender, or some other dimensions? Thank you.
This was the first. This is a really good question. This was the first open survey that we've done on that. We noted that most of them were basically from all over because we organize share tasks that are for so many languages. So we organize sometimes share tasks that contain 30 to 40 languages. So we kind of had reach to people, and we saw that there was a good distribution of where people were coming from a little bit. Of course, it's not ideal. And it's difficult to balance because it's also difficult to get people to answer. But we were happy with that, and I think we are planning to do more digging when it comes to trying to get more balanced distribution. So most of the people were working either in Europe or in Asia. So we didn't have a lot of people working. We have like 3 or 4 working in North America. And there were a lot of people working on African languages, but they were not living in Africa. So they were mostly living abroad, like myself, and working on African languages.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very interesting research. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay, well, so I believe that the rest of presentations will be also inspiring, right, interesting, and will also raise some debate. All right, we proceed with Nicole Willow, Associate Professor, Norwegian University of Technology and Sciences, Norway. So you're welcome, you are given the floor. I believe I should stop sharing, right? Because most likely you would like to share your presentation.
But I'm sharing. Can everyone see the slides now?
Yeah, we can see it well. Thank you so much, right?
Yes, I can have here. Dear colleagues from the Department for English of English for Engineering, thank you for inviting us for this year's Corpora and Discourse conference and all the organizing team, and of course also dear participants of today's conference. I am wondering, how do you consider your own professional digital competence? Are you effectively integrating technology into your teaching to improve students' learning? At the Department of Teacher Education at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, I'm working with several national and international projects on teachers' professional digital competence. So on this slide, you see pictures from our DIG School project. It is a competence development project to facilitate an extensive inclusion of professional digital competence across schools' practices in primary schools. In Norway, primary schools are from year 1 to 10. And NTNU is acting as a co-creator towards being an enabler for interaction learning instead of just being a knowledge provider. So on this project, we focus on systematic competence development in the use of digital technology. We facilitate the development of pupils' basic digital skills, which is part of the Norwegian school curriculum. And we work systematically with the teacher's role as a model, and we, of course, also conduct follow-up research. In total, there are 80 primary schools that are involved in this program that started in 2020 and will come to an end in 2027. And besides of teaching pedagogy courses to teacher students, I'm also a German as a foreign language teacher. So we see what affects this. Thanks. So are you familiar with the European Framework for the Digital Competence of Educators, also called DICCOMP-EDU? It is from 2017, and yes, you see AI is not here yet, but here digital competencies specific to our profession as educators are set in order to be able to seize the potential of digital technologies for enhancing and innovating education. You see, there are 6 defined areas, and they are distributed across educators' professional competences, educators' pedagogic competencies, and learners' competencies. In Norway, we have the Professional Digital Competence Framework for teachers. So this framework is based on 7 competencies area for the teacher profession, and that was defined in the report to the Parliament from 2008, 2009, the teacher, the role, and the education. So the themes here are the subjects and basic skills. Then we have school and society, ethics, pedagogy and subject didactics, leadership of processes. Of course, as a teacher, you're a leader of a learning process to your students, the interaction and communication, and the change of development. So these competence areas are based on requirements and expectations in national government documents, as well as finding from Norwegian and international research. So the framework consists, this is just the visualization, but it's quite long. So the actual framework consists of general description of competence areas, as well as elaborations in form of knowledge, skills, and general competencies. The role of the teacher is key in this context. So in order to be capable of developing pupils' basic skills and specialized knowledge, teachers must develop their own professional digital competence during their initial teacher education, and then later during their teaching career through continuing professional education and development, like now the AI boom the last years. The professional digital competence for teachers has 2 aims. So the first one centers on professional development, and the other is centered around the actual practice of profession. So the DIG School project also follows these frameworks, and then we kind of tailor each school and help to come up with their own school's framework on how to use digital tools. So the role of the teacher is clearly substantiated by research that shows it is important that teachers are confident with using different tools, trying different practices, and they are willing to learn from each other. So teachers should build networks and develop as educators. Research has also found that teachers and instructors need to have awareness of the content, and they are also required to gain the knowledge of how technology and online environments affect the pedagogy and the content they are teaching. Like you already said in the first talk, you have to understand how language models are built up in order to make the most out of it. And furthermore, it is known that technology knowledge significantly influences the use of technology by foreign language teachers. And the use of technology can inspire students and increase teachers' motivation to learn. And here you have all in your head the apps and the games, everything we can mix into. So now back to your digital competence as an educator. Are you familiar with the TPEC framework? Let's have a closer look at this TPEC framework and see what is in it for you as an educator, as a teacher, in your role. So the technological pedagogical content knowledge TPEC framework was developed to conceptualize the core knowledge that teachers need to successfully integrate technology into their teaching. Currently, the TPEC is one of the most cited frameworks within the field of educational research. And it was introduced in 2006, and since that there has been an improvement of successful learning, and it has been widely recognized. So here you see the model to the left, and in the next step I will explain you how it's built up, where you have to start to look at it. And on the right you have links to its origin. I always like to credit the inventors. So you see the link to its origin, the paper where it was first mentioned, link to the homepage of Mishra, one of the co-founder, and then a link to a YouTube clip named A Brief History of the TPEC from the other co-founder, Matthew Köhler. So let me explain. The TPEC framework is based on Schulman's pedagogical content knowledge, PCK. What is this? As a teacher, you can see you have content knowledge, and it stands for what your understanding and expertise in the subject area you teach. Whether it's language, science, social studies, math, art, all the core subject areas. So the content knowledge consists of all the facts, the concepts, the theories about a given discipline as content knowledge. And then we have, in addition, the pedagogical knowledge. This is the how, the didactics. So how is your expert knowledge of language, of the art and science of teaching, from learning theories to instructional design? Pedagogical knowledge, it includes teaching and assessment methods such as project-based learning, as well as instructional strategies such as think, pair, share, So knowledge of these principles help you to design successful learning experiences for each individual student. And the pedagogical content knowledge, which is in the title, is the intersection between the pedagogical and the content areas. So the knowledge you have about how to effectively engage students in learning concepts and skills. This knowledge includes approaches to address different learning styles and to scaffold content for deeper understanding. The educational psychologist Lee Schumann saw this intersection as teaching as its best. But then several researchers, including Köhler and Mishra, have added another component in the early 2000s, because then the 21st century teaching came up, and that is the technological literacy, or TK. So the technology knowledge represents your knowledge of the tools. So just think technology here, including how to select, to use, and integrate technology in your curriculum. But it's not only about the devices, it's also about the quality of the content that students access through apps, websites, and games for learning by integrating technology to PCK. So now you have new insights into and opportunities for student learning. It is the technological and content knowledge. You see new intersections. The TCK, the technological content knowledge, refers to how technology is used in the subject area for deep and lasting learning. For example, to advance an understanding of the subject in the way that one can use sophisticated tools to gather evidence, make observations, and document findings. Interactive software allows them to see their data represented in different ways. Applications of such technologies can then help deepen individual students' investigations within the given discipline. And then comes the technological pedagogical knowledge. The other intersections reddish here. So it is the understanding of how to set and manage technology for your students, such with the technology will best facilitate the students' workflow through the exploration of the scientific method. How you use collaboration tools to engage students in sharing their learning with each other. So this knowledge of technology will advance your teaching. And then at least we have the intersection of all three knowledge domains of content, pedagogy, and technology. It is at the core of the TPAC. Thus, the TPAC consists of three core components: pedagogical knowledge, content knowledge, and the technological content. And when you plan your lessons and when you think of using technology devices in your things, so keep in mind, as a teacher, as an educator, we first look at the content and our pedagogical knowledge, and then kind of integrate the technological knowledge to lift the teaching with the tools. And since learning and teaching are highly situated activities, Köhler and Mishra included the context, the circle around to the TPAC model already 2 years later in 2008. And this was in 2019 upgraded and named contextual knowledge, because we know to capture what teachers know about text. And this includes everything from a teacher's awareness of the availability of technologies, knowledge of the school, the district, the state, or national politics they operate within. So the abilities of TPEC are the collaboration among knowledge, skill, and competence in their learning activities. So here you can use it to describe how teachers design, apply curriculum, and conduct teaching activities while guiding students to think, to learn, being critical, and practice their digital technology. A mastery of all these components can generate an effective, efficient, and attractive learning process. Of course, many may then assume that the presence of technology can solve learning problems. However, research shows clearly that the advantage of use of technology in teaching and learning is determined by the teacher's knowledge of technology and their capabilities to harmonize with pedagogical aspects and characteristics of the subject. So please, it has to be avoided that students focus more on using on technology than on understanding the subject matter. So I encourage you to dive deeper into this TPEC framework and see what is in it for you. I had some references on some slides and you can share them later. And I have, yes, I taught this, but I also have some additional references here. And at least I would thank you for your attention with a picture of our city center in summer. But now you have to imagine everything is snowy and very cold. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation. Okay, well, the place looks also wonderful. Right, and we have already got one question. Only it is in the chat. That's why I believe let's have a look at it. Dear Dr. Nicole Wheeler, are different digital leadership styles considered in the professional digital framework for teachers, Women Norway? If so, could you comment on that, please? Which style is preferred over the others? Thank you.
Yes, of course, we can say we all have different styles. And then again, we have to take consideration on our own styles. Every year when I start my classes teaching, after a couple of weeks, we have like 8 parallel classes of teaching pedagogy. And then the first teacher students come up with like, well, the other class is doing something different than we. So they can't understand that each teacher is individual, because when we go out and teach, no class is the same. So I always try to get my style. I like to get to know my students, to adjust also the style and content of teaching, just to like help them and get better and make the most out of it. Yes.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much. Maybe some more questions arose. If yes, you're most welcome. Dear participants, maybe some considerations, some questions, right?
Yes. Can I please ask a question? So, dear Nicole, I have such considerations. It's mostly not a question, but maybe considerations. Look, we all know that teachers, educators, they have really huge and increasing digital demands. And so really, digitalization is everywhere. So my question is, have you observed any correlation between increasing digital demands and rising level of stress and burnout among teachers? And if so, maybe you know some mechanisms. You can share ideas about this.
Yes, it's interesting because actually now Norway is following like Australia and also Sweden, like forbidding cell phones in school and discussing about what is screen time, how can we do that. When I teach my class, I like to encourage them to get to know different digital technologies and tools, because you have to practice with them. You have to be secure in using them. So I often ask them to make a website and use different digital technologies and tools to work with a literature requirement of the course and to represent it. So I feel this is a safe environment and they can work with it. But I know some of my colleagues, they're like stressed out because I can't this, I can't do that, but just relax. I think it helps actually getting better, and also for like disabled or pupils with having disabilities, how can you use digital technology to help them with a different diagnosis they have? And just think of the motivation. I can see it in the school project when they use, for example, Minecraft in school for mathematics, calculating the surroundings. Then suddenly you have students who are never visible in school classes, maybe some troublemakers, but this is their field of specialty, and suddenly they get all the attention from the other class pupils, and they are like heroes. And I like showing where are you good at and get the motivation for the next maybe boring lesson, but you still have it on it. Yes. So we help the teachers in all the schools just getting familiar and safe with it. Yes.
Thank you so much. So some people practice information isolation from time to time. For
Yes.
3 days, for a week, I also know this method. So does it really work?
We'll
So
see.
with your
Yeah.
teachers.
Yes, yes. But please contact me if you have any
Rhetorical
more
question.
interested in any of these projects, and then we can build up something.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Well, I believe it's important for building bridges. Maybe somebody else has got any questions. Welcome. Well, by the way, I heard about it. I've got a friend of mine, and her daughter is in the high school, and she's not allowed to use something like ChatGPT or anything for her classes.
Yeah.
And the telephone time is limited, and she lives in Norway, so it's true.
Yes, and I have one more thing, because we also have a lot of Ukrainian refugees in Norway, and in the last part of the Dig School project, we have 3 schools for grown-ups coming to learn. And just 2 weeks ago, I gave a talk how to use digital tools to include my students from minorities coming from other countries, and how to use, for example, language translation and other backups to include them.
Mhm. All right, so you already
you.
have the topic for the next presentation, for the next
Yes.
conference. Okay, thank you so much once again, right? And we proceed with our next speaker, with our next presenter. So now the floor is given to Roxolana Поворознюк, Professor Taras Shevchenko, National University, Ukraine, Kyiv, this time.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Olena Ivanivna, and all of the organizers and our esteemed colleagues, both from Ukraine and from abroad. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm extremely happy to proceed with discussing the subjects that were touched upon by Nicole, the humanitarian crisis, and also how can we integrate most vulnerable people into our common narrative. So I'm going to share my presentation.
Right?
Yep. And now I'm entering the presentation mode.
Yes, we have got it.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, here it is.
Yeah, you have zoomed it in. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to speak today about the ethical lifeline that the medical interpreting turns into, especially in conditions of the war, and also the displacement that our people are facing, but not only that. So before we start speaking about the Corpora and how we can integrate the research into our findings, let me say a few words about the general background. So I'm here speaking on behalf of the international organizations such as the IMIA, International Medical Interpreting Association, CHIA, California Healthcare Interpreting Association, and ATA, American Translators Association, that I'm a member of. Also speaking and using my background of the professor, teaching the courses of medical interpreting and translation and community interpreting in general. So the core concept of my presentation today would be vulnerability. And we tend to think that vulnerability is a passive characteristic, which is either brought by the conditions of ill health or the lack of communicative capacities of the patients and people who were displaced, as I was saying, relocated to other countries without linguistic support. However, I would like to introduce the new concept of vulnerability, to look at it from the discursive point of view, and to show that vulnerability is actually created and enacted by the communication itself. And here the role of the interpreter is crucial, as we understand. So when we are speaking about vulnerability in general, we can speak about three types. We can speak about the emotional vulnerability, the epistemic or knowledge vulnerability, when the person understands the language, for instance, but cannot communicate in a proper way, in such a way as to empower themselves and protect their interests, and the institutional vulnerability, where a system is moving too fast for the newcomer, or a system is unable to speak the language of the newcomer properly. So if we may turn down to the issue of the care, then we can say that if we look at the medical interpreting field, we consider the care in medical interpreting to be a category which exceeds the empathy, because we provide the ethical stance, the professional responsibilities, and thus we speak about the ethical medical interpreting as a category that involves professional standards and also the ethical considerations. How do we see that in the actual discourse? The particular ethical stance of the medical interpreter is brought into the discourse by the so-called ethical transitions. You can see the examples of such in the phrases, which are part of the cultural mediation. And actually, it is a skill that has been taught to medical interpreters, because this is not part of the linguistic background, but it is a strategy, a complex of tactics that should be learned. And with ethical transitions, we can actually see that the interpreters are constantly navigating the competing loyalties, the loyalty to the institution itself, to the clinician that they represent, and to the client, who often comes from the minority group. You can see the main functions of the ethical transitions: to protect transparency, neutrality, and the patient themselves. Also, we can speak about empowering the individuals who feel a lack of respect or a lack of inclusion from the outside authority. So we may say that medical interpreting is an ethically charged and care-infused communicative practice which requires attentiveness, emotional intelligence, ethical intuition, and relational responsibility. We can see the interpreters as the communicative stabilizers, because they kind of find a balance between two counterparts in the interpreted event. However, there is a downside to this professional capacity, because the emotional cost of care very often overburdens the individual who provides it. So the interpreters are absorbing the stories of pain, the news of terminal diagnosis, family crisis, emergencies, and traumatic events. And as a result, they often suffer from vicarious trauma. That means that they are not actually subjects who are experiencing the trauma, but they are facing it because they are reproducing the story from an I perspective. And thus they find themselves in the shoes of the person who is suffering this event. However, despite those risks and the almost constant stories of burnout that the interpreters are sharing, in many healthcare systems, the interpreters remain invisible, and a lot of the conditions that they suffer from, they are actually the product of a lack of professional respect towards the interpreters' services. So I think that all of the healthcare systems, Ukrainian included, needs to look towards a new ethical model, where in each of the standards of quality, such as accuracy, transparency, care, we should also add emotional stability, vulnerability awareness, and the interpreter's well-being, because the human denominator is the only stabilizing factor that keeps the interpreted communication going. So without the professional involvement of a person who is ethically responsible and trauma-informed, medical interpreting would not be possible. And thus, we are not looking at the interpreter as the conduit model, which was prominent in the previous years, but as an individual and ethical stabilizer. And now let me say quite a few words about how we can gain our insights from the discourse analysis and analysis of Corpora. So all of the things that I was speaking about, they are mostly hypothetical and intuitively suggested, or they come from the practice of people who are actually medical interpreters. However, the benefit of the discourse analysis is that it is supported by empirical and corpus-based evidences. Let me say a few words about the limitations, why the discourse analysis is not that prevalent in medical interpreting field. So the limitation may be explained by the fact that all of the medical encounters are centered around confidential matters, and so the authentic recordings are extremely scarce. However, we also have a small but growing number of specialized corpora that allow us to examine the micro levels of the interpreter's intervention, such as how the interpreters regulate turn-taking, how to explain the pauses, the cases of mitigation of meaning. How do we see the empathetic alignment? How does the interpreter explains that or shows that they take the stand of a certain side? And we can see that in verbal and non-verbal signals, such as, for instance, the ethical transitions. So I will mention 4 corpora that are more or less, let's say, widely studied in the medical interpreting field, but you can also see some other samples, and if you ask me about them, I will also be very eager to share. So if we look at the mediated interaction and communication in healthcare corpus, it is the one that comes from Europe. And here we can find transcripts of multilingual interpreter-mediated hospital encounters, where you can see the verbal and non-verbal markers that are mentioned on the slide. Another valuable resource from Europe is the so-called GMIP corpus. This is the German medical interpreting corpus. And here you can also see that the groups of interpreters are divided into professional and ad hoc interpreters. So the natural bilinguals who are speaking 2 languages, but they were not actually studying interpreting and were not professionally trained. Next group of corpora. So this is these are the ones that come from the US. The first one, the clinical communication and interpreter interaction corpus, is the one which is mostly about the analysis of the doctor, interpreter, and patient triadic interaction. And if we may say, it focuses around the emergency care contexts. The one on the right, that would be the Spanish-English medical dialogue corpora. This is used frequently in the interpreter training because it consists not only of the real clinical interactions, but also of the simulated clinical interactions. And thus the researchers can compare professional, novice, and untrained interpreting strategies. What do we learn from the discourse analysis if we consider the medical interpreting field? So we can actually observe how each of the instances that we may hypothetically assume, for instance, the epistemic asymmetries, manifest themselves in the real communicative situations. Who is allowed to know what? How the people are given the right to speak? How do they ask for clarification? We can see how verbally the politeness shows itself, how the interpreters soften the harsh directives or reframe the distressing information. Alignment strategy is about when the interpreters choose the advocacy stance. That means that they show that they are now representing the patient, the minority, or the gatekeeping stance. In this case, they are showing that they are siding with the provider of the healthcare. Mitigation and intensification, this is about the register shift. So the interpreters are always making adjustments to the register when they are speaking to both sides of the interpreting encounter. And the agency work. So basically, how do interpreters manifest their ethical purpose that they need to help patients and empower them to find their own voice in the intimidating circumstances. And here I'm going to speak a little bit about the emerging corpora from Ukraine. So this is actually due to the fact that the war has actually revealed a lot of the aspects of the interpreting activities that were not noticed so much previously. And the Ukrainian researchers turned to the field-collected materials from the hospitals, volunteer medical units, humanitarian hubs. So they auto-record consent and then reconstruct those encounters through ethnographic field notes. And this is how we see what the wartime stress does to the communication, and how emotional load, cultural mediation, and clinician uncertainty intersect with the professionalism of the interpreters themselves. So when we are speaking about the material for the research, we are mainly speaking about the collected reports and, as I was saying, records that are provided by the representatives of the Ukrainian medical institutions to such international organizations as, for instance, MSF, that would be Médecins Sans Frontières, then the ICRC, that would be International Committee of the Red Cross, and UNHCR, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, but we can also find other examples of the NGOs who are collecting those data. And what we observe mostly in those encounters, if we look at them from a broader perspective, this is a so-called double vulnerability. So when we are speaking about the ordinary, regular medical encounters, though I wouldn't say that any of them could be called regular, still we can see that there is a vulnerability on one side. That would be the side of the patient. However, when we are speaking about the Ukrainian perspective, then it is the patient's vulnerability and the interpreter's vulnerability, because they are also facing the same crisis, often the uncertain circumstances and the dangers of the war. However, the data also demonstrate remarkable resilience practices, and we can observe them in the micro debriefings between shifts. So that is how the interpreters exchange information with the patients, making them aware of what is going to happen and trying to reaffirm their assurance in the professionalism of the encounter. Mutual emotional checking, so the interpreter is checking both with the healthcare provider and the patient collaborative note-making. This is the group of clinicians who are sharing their notes with the interpreters. Subtle shifts in a tone that restore dignity to exhausted or frightened patients. And I would also like to extend welcome and greeting to those people who are accepting and trying to welcome our displaced people and also our refugees in your own countries, providing them with as much social benefits as possible. And what do we see if we consider the corporal undertakings? So we can speak about the fact that vulnerability becomes quantifiable. So we can actually find several components in this vulnerability. And for each of the components, we can provide figures, data, to show which of the components are especially prominent. Ethics becomes empirically traceable, so you can see which of the principles of the ethical behavior are manifested and the verbal and non-verbal signals that manifest it. And the care becomes analytically visible, meaning that the care, not only healthcare in general, but the interpreter's care becomes actually a subject and an object for analysis. So the interpreter is a subject, but their product interpreting as the material for the analysis. And let me make a few conclusions. So why does this specific issue matter? Ethics is never a static code. This is a dynamic practice, and it is enacted in every product of the interpreter's activity. And thus, whenever we make an utterance, a pause, or a formulation, we are making also the alignment choice. Secondly, if we use the corpus analysis, it allows us to demonstrate that the ethical responsibility of the interpreter is never the fidelity itself, because previously they were always saying accuracy, fidelity, and neutrality. They are the cornerstones of the interpreter's activity. However, it extends to safeguarding dignity, emotional well-being, and the communicative agency of the people. And with that, I thank you for the attention. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Professor Oksana Pavryznyuk. I believe every year you have got very interesting, very profound pieces of research. Just I remember last year I asked you about pharmacopoeia, and now I see that this vocabulary is still developing, and I believe that there would be new dictionaries soon. Well, your questions, please, your comments, dear colleagues, dear guests, dear participants. If no questions so far, maybe then I will proceed with my question. As you started really developing so much vocabulary, and as you said, there may be dubious cases, like there should be like either location or something else taken into account. Are you compiling anything? Are you a part maybe of the research group or a group of terminologists who are working on compiling some lists, glossaries, whatsoever?
Thank you very much. So on the basis of our educational institution, we have a group of German terminologists. They have also been collecting the terminology in German language. And I guess it would be the grounds, the framework for the similar project in the English language, which is, I would still in the development, so it's not present.
Okay, thank you so much. Maybe it may be a thesaurus like German, and next to it English, and that would be maybe a perfect idea. But it's just my suggestion.
Right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, dear Professor Olena Moskalenko, you had a question, right? Or you wanted to make a comment? No.
So after Nicole will also, she has a question. I see. Yes, a comment.
Yes, I also have not a question, but also a comment, because it's so funny. Yesterday, I had the first meeting with an incoming international master student. She's an Indogene Peruvian lady, and she will come to Trondheim, and she will look at the ethical problems of a digital platform used for doctoral students, and she thinks that how they present the tropical disease and everything is really prejudice and not right. So she will look, how can I like influence a digital platform using wrong information with concerning the ethics. So we will keep in contact.
Yeah, this is an important topic, and if you could share it in the Zoom chat, I would be happy to continue on this topic with her. Thank you very much.
And also, thank you so much. I would like to make such comment, you know, I paid attention. You raised a very important issue that medical interpreters are undertrained, underestimated. And it is true, I should say. My colleagues who are also medical translators, they also say about that. And it is really very difficult. I just was thinking about how people, they all the time, they perceive this traumatic information. So from patients, from doctors, yeah, it's really, I connect this topic with the previous one about the stress that they receive. And this is really a point of discussion.
Yeah, that's right.
Research. Thank you so much for raising this.
Thank you very much.
issue.
Thanks a lot. Well, it raised some debates, and I'm very pleased that we have got some discussion. Right, so we proceed with our speakers, and next the floor is given to Ivana Kursmanovic. That's, Professor, University of Kragujevac, Serbia. You're most welcome with your speech. The floor is yours. Just a second, I'll stop sharing.
Thank you. I
I
suppose
hope I pronounced everything correctly.
Yeah,
Would you
yes.
please correct me?
Yes, you did great. Don't worry. Hope you can hear me well.
Yeah, we
and
can hear you
and see
perfectly.
me. Yeah, super cool. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for having me today at this wonderful conference. It's a pleasure to be here. I represent, as you said, at the University of Kragujevac in Serbia, and I'm coming from the Faculty of Technical Sciences, Čačak, where I have been teaching for 2 decades. And I also have served as head of the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences. My research interests center around computer-assisted language learning, intercultural competence, and of course, English for specific purposes, because we deal with future engineers. My talk for today tackles a little bit of AI, but also other concepts as well, and it's titled Autonomy, Algorithms, and the Art of Saying No, ChatGPT in English for Specific Purposes. So to start with, I'd like to share a photo which you've maybe come across somewhere on the internet. I find it very interesting to start my talk. So if we take a look at this photo, we'll see 2 balconies in one building, but completely different balconies. So at first glance, you'll see the upper one being very bare, 1 chair, 1 can of beer, pretty much nothing else there. And the balcony below shows a beautiful self-curated balcony, a lot of flowers. Somebody has really taken care of the balcony, although the architectural context is pretty much the same. So these balconies tell 2 opposing stories, or 2 radically different stories, I would say. But if we think about the balconies as linguistical space, or space for our language learning, we would say there is a huge contrast that could be applied or could be metaphorically used to represent how we learn a language and how we take care of our own learning. So the first balcony, the upper one, is very bare, minimalistic, and we would say taken for granted. People get it, people got it and use it as it is. And the one below shows a dedication, perseverance, what happens when someone takes care of their own place. So this could be applied to our language learning to a certain extent. So pretty much I wanted to share the results of the research study I did with my colleague Elena Tica, who's going to present later today. And this self-directed learning concept was one of the pillars of our research, because we, from our practice and our teaching context, we saw that self-directed learning matters a lot, especially in academic contexts, where you get students aged 18 or older who really have to take care of their own learning. That's a crucial skill. Everybody knows that also the concept of lifelong learning continues afterwards when you start your careers. So self-directed learning was one of the pillars for our research. We also tackled motivation, which is defined here from Randy Garrison's work as something that triggers engagement and pushes you to foster your learning more. And of course, the third pillar of our research was ChatGPT. We've heard a lot about large language models and ChatGPT, which has become, let's say, common. For the past 2 years, everybody pretty much has been using ChatGPT, especially our engineering students, we must say. So I wanted to share this definition of self-directed learning to you, given by Knowles many decades ago, because it shapes a little bit the concept of our research. In its broadest meaning, self-directed learning describes a process, let me just move this, in which individuals take the initiative with or without the help of others in diagnosing their language learning needs, formulating learning goals, identifying human and material resources for learning, choosing and implementing appropriate learning strategies, and evaluating learning outcomes. This is what mattered to us. Also, we heard things about artificial intelligence and ChatGPT, and there is evidence, there is research that proves that AI can facilitate self-directed learning by providing learners with feedback, with recommendations, with interactive opportunities, and that can all help to promote and learn language better, especially English for specific purposes. Finally, when talking about motivation, motivation is one of the components of self-directed learning as defined in the Randy Garrison's framework, where we see self-management, self-monitoring, and finally motivation as one of the key concepts in this strategy or approach. Okay, this is our research. So we had 3 aims or 3 objectives of the study. So we wanted to investigate the influence of students' motivation on their use of ChatGPT for their self-directed learning. We wanted to examine how learning strategies affect their frequency of ChatGPT usage and to explore their perceptions of incorporating ChatGPT into ESP instruction. So we had a procedure. We didn't want, my colleague Lena and I, we didn't want to force students to use ChatGPT in a way that they wouldn't like. So before the semester started last year, we provided a focused instruction and we taught a little bit prompt engineering, teaching them how to use ChatGPT for their ESP learning course we had. It was a business English course. And our sample was 80 students of information technology. So after the semester was finished, of course, they used ChatGPT throughout the semester for different assignments. We allowed them to explore the tool and pretty much explore the options and features of the tool. Finally, we administered the questionnaire, which was based on adapted version of self-directed readiness scale, adapted. So we added bits we were interested to explore more. And of course, the analysis consisted of descriptive statistics, Pearson correlation, and one-way ANOVA to get some results. And here are the results. As far as demography is concerned, as you can see, almost 60% of our students belong to 17 to 20 years old age group. And we have older students as well. And as far as gender is concerned, you see that almost 73% identified as male, which also can be a limitation to our study because we don't have an equal proportion of both boys and girls, but this is what it's expected. You always have engineers, boys interested in engineering degrees more. We also wanted to know, we asked them to self-assess their English proficiency. So we had 52.5% of advanced students, 37.5% of immediate level, and the beginner, of course, this is their self-assessment. So I suppose there were these percentages were accurate because they're well aware of their knowledge. Before the business English course, they also had 2 courses where they could assess their English proficiency levels. In terms of the questionnaire and the statistics of this self-directed learning readiness, these are the means for motivation to learn a language and for their learning strategies. And what you can see from this, from the data, the means are pretty high. The scale was 1 to 5, so 3.75 for motivation and 3.67 for learning strategies, which implies that our students have high motivation, moderate high motivation, and also have developed learning strategies for language learning. And I want to share just like one part of the questionnaire so you can get an idea of what the statements were related to and some of the means here. So you can see that the statement, I want to continue learning English for as long as possible, got 4.28. Or you have, I believe that I will do well in the English class, also very high mean, as well as I want to learn how to use English language effectively, also 4.53. So motivation, in terms of motivation, it was really high. You can also see that pretty much all means are around 3 or above. In terms of descriptive statistics for language learning strategies, very similar situation, high numbers for certain statements here. For example, this one, when I'm learning a new grammar rule, I think about its relationship and the rules I have already learned. Or I listen to English materials to improve my English, for example, English songs, news, radio broadcasts. And I intentionally apply English that I have learned for communication in speaking and writing, very high means here as well, which implies that our students have developed different learning strategies for the ESP learning. We were also curious to find out about their ChatGPT experience. So several tables I have here with results. In terms of satisfaction with ChatGPT responses, you see that there is no high satisfaction. The highest for the learning segment of writing assistance. This is like students gave 4 or 5 to this satisfaction element, but pretty much all segments are low, we would say. So they were using ChatGPT, but the satisfaction level was not that high, I would say. Yeah. In terms of frequency of ChatGPT use, this is table 4. Also, frequency was, we would say, lower. The highest frequency was for conversation and communication. We also, in a way, we must have in mind that some students, especially those who are digital natives nowadays, tend to use ChatGPT as Google. So if they have a question to ask or they need some kind of explanation, they would use ChatGPT instead of Google, probably not being aware that these two differ drastically. Okay. And we also asked them about how they use ChatGPT. So we provided 4 options for them to choose from. And you see the range here was 1 to 4. So you see that 2.27, the highest mean, was for the first option, which says, first, I try to solve the task on my own, then I use other sources, and finally, I consult ChatGPT. So, and the lowest here was 1.58. First, I check how ChatGPT would solve the task, then I use its response as my own. So we would say, of course, if students were honest, we presume that they were, their use of ChatGPT was quite okay. So they were trying to solve the task on their own and then consulted ChatGPT. In terms of their recommendation, because we asked them whether they felt they had learned something using the tool, mixed responses. You see some of them, 41% said yes, but you also have 28% saying no and 30% not knowing whether they learned much from the ChatGPT tool. And in terms of recommendation of the tool for independent language learning, very interesting result, but probably we assume this is going to be this way. 53% of our students said we would recommend using ChatGPT for independent language learning, but with traditional methods. So they still stick to traditional methods. ChatGPT is not what they would start with in the first place. Okay, and these are the correlations, a very messy and detailed table, but pretty much we got the correlation between motivation and self-directed learning strategies. And these results imply that students' motivation is positively correlated with the frequency of ChatGPT usage, which pretty much suggests that if the motivation is high, it is likely there is a tendency that students would use ChatGPT more in terms of satisfaction as well. Okay, so the more they use it, the more they're satisfied. And also the same refers to learning strategies. The higher the learning strategies are developed, the higher satisfaction and usage of ChatGPT is evident. What I haven't mentioned here, and I see I'm running out of time, we haven't noticed any differences. There were not statistically significant differences between the language level and the gender. So these results apply no matter their gender or level of language. I pretty much summarize some of the key findings, but I told them about them. If students have high motivation and have developed learning strategies, they engage more, they're more dedicated to their studies. What I haven't mentioned is that within their learning strategies, reflective self-regulation was less common. So they relied on their auditory, cognitive, and practical strategies, but reflection was not as much involved as it should be. Also, some of these, these results imply that ChatGPT, maybe it could have been used more, of course, if the instructions were like that, but majority of students retrieve to traditional teaching methods. They rely on their teachers more, and they prefer using ChatGPT only as a supplement to their traditional instruction. If we wanted to talk about pedagogical implications from everything we did here, pretty much what this research tells us is that we need to build on students' motivation. If students are already motivated to learn language, half of our work is pretty much done. Also, we need to strengthen their self-directed learning habits. If they already have developed strategies, how to use, how to revise the content, how to self-evaluate their knowledge, how to use techniques for self-directed learning, it also eases our job as well and gives us better results. It also implies that all other technology, all other tools will be used more and will be voluntarily explored for learning English language or ESP in our case. Also, what this research tells us is that we have to promote critical use of AI. Within these results, we've seen that students have high critical use of AI. So they pretty much, that was shown in the frequency of their use and also the percentages of different learning segments such as writing, vocabulary, communication, cultural information, and so on. Based on also the percentages that are related to teachers' interference in courses and teaching the language, we see that blend of AI with traditional teaching is like their favorite option. And in terms of their proficiency level and gender, pretty much what we see from the data, we should stop gatekeeping for advanced students. Proficiency here didn't matter. Illiteracy doesn't, there is no correlation between their level of English knowledge and pretty much their gender. Everybody is equally aware of the positive sides and downsides of ChatGPT and similar models. And this is where I'm going to finish. If you have any questions, feel free to, I'll take questions. These are the main results of our research. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, it's good that we kept on in the same key, I would say, right? Because we started discussing digitalization and a bit touched upon LLM models and ChatGPT, and now we proceed. I believe the first question should be from our colleague, Alina Kondrashova. It is in the chat. Well, I believe she has no possibility to ask it. So the question is like, so to what extent do your results correspond to real students' work? I'm referring primarily to written assignments, since they provide the most representative evidence of learning outcomes, whether they were performed by the AI or by the real students.
Yes, Alina, thank you for your question. I think this is a serious concern for us. We see a lot of students' assignments, many of them, which wouldn't go through this Turnitin check. But you have to, I mean, we must have in mind that we have IT students, and digital natives. They are learning, I mean, they're studying for their engineering degrees. So like everything we see online or digital tools are very common to them. And since this course, Business English, is in their third year of study, they have previously, they had other English courses. So they had opportunity to learn and to use other tools and see whether that works for them or no. Because whenever we have an assignment that we can suspect is AI, of course, they get a bad feedback, or it shows, pretty much it shows. When we have a presentation on a certain ESP topic and we ask them to deliver a presentation, if it has been done by AI solely without their interference, it doesn't work. It shows. So probably you're right. In written assignments, it can be a problem, but that's why we changed a lot how we grade students, and written assignments pretty much center around writing professional emails or complaints, or writing something between business correspondence, which has certain framework, and phrases that you can find everywhere.
Yeah, you can spot, right?
Yeah,
You can spot by them. Maybe one question on my part, if you don't mind. Like,
sure.
you are talking about literacy in this respect on the students' part. And what about the lecturers? What about educators? Do you believe they are prepared enough to work with all these new models? Because ChatGPT may be easier. I like Perplexity, well, but that's my preference. I like it a bit more. I'm a bit better with it. Do you have any, I do not know, are there any courses, maybe refresher courses, maybe some, or is it self-study on the part of the lecturers to cover all these materials, to be in the loop, so to say?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. We also, Lena and I did a similar research on digital literacy of lecturers. And interestingly, we found that English language lecturers have high level of digital literacy, probably because they know English well, they are by nature curious, they use digital tools in everyday teaching, no matter whether you teach like 10-year-olds or older students. Other colleagues, we have a lot of colleagues who are engineers, reluctantly use AI. They are suspicious about, potential downsides of the tools. I suppose more training, more training program, more seminars should be dedicated to literacy of definitely.
thank you
of
so much. That's what I
lectures, yeah,
expected.
yeah. Because it is like a thing it's evolving. So we can learn one thing now, and like in 6 months or 1 year, thing may drastically change. We have to keep up with the
Yeah, right.
changes. Yeah. But
Absolutely.
English lecturers are doing great based on our research. So kudos to all English language lecturers and their
Okay, but
digital
basically
literacy.
it is self-study, right?
Yeah,
Self-study and
yeah.
self-development.
And
So-
natural curiosity. Yes, you want to try
Natural
out
curiosity.
things. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Maybe there are some more comments, questions.
Yes, we have questions. Yeah, there are 2 hands in the chat. Thank you, Tatiana. Thank you, Ivana, for your interesting presentation. And this aligns a lot with what we do in our department. We also work with IT and engineering students, and several of our colleagues, including me, we delivered a study a couple of years ago on how students work with ChatGPT in terms of the choices. And there were 2 cohorts of students from our university, IT and engineering students, and from another national university in Ukraine who were business majoring students. So we were examining how they use ChatGPT for their studies, and we were focusing more on their reasons, so what they use ChatGPT for. So what we saw there is that we observed that they use ChatGPT as a source for, like, answering domain-specific questions or doing their subject-specific research and working with the artificial intelligence to enhance their delivery. And what we also noticed that they used English language as a tool. Did you observe the same in your research?
In this particular research, no, but I also think it comes a lot to their level of initial digital literacy and how well they know the sources they use online, on internet. Pretty much we would say that due to their proficiency in IT and dealing with technology, they presume they have high level of digital literacy, although critical use of sources is not as good as we would expect. Sometimes the level of English competence and proficiency interferes. So when they get result from ChatGPT, you need to revise, you need to rebuild, you need to work with that so that you can use it. Sometimes they take it for granted, and we need to teach them how to use the tool critically so that it is, relevant and useful for their use.
All right, thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, because
thank
we
you,
are
everybody.
dealing
I
with-
see some of the questions in the chat, so I will respond in the chat.
Okay, if
because,
it is possible, right? Because we are teaching the same, so to say, and that's why I delivered stipulated and prompted with more questions.
Thank you.
May I ask another question?
Sure. Is it for me?
Yes. Thank you very much. It's so interesting, and you assess motivation, and you use a certain scale, I know.
Yeah.
And you divide motivation into the groups. And so the stronger motivation, the more frequently students use ChatGPT. Have you investigated the influence of using ChatGPT on motivation? Because motivation may change. Well, and why would someone do something by themselves if ChatGPT can do it faster?
Right. That's a good question. Thank you. We could do reverse engineering and start from ChatGPT and go towards motivation. From our research studies, we have several on very similar topics, Professor Lena Tica and I. What we learned, their intrinsic motivation, I'm talking only about my students, engineering and IT students, their intrinsic motivation is to pass the exam or find a better job. Their motivation to learn English. So when talking about types of motivation, it's only practical one. So nobody learns English because they want to use it when they travel abroad or to be more competent or for any personal use. So motivation for learning English is considered a tool as well as ChatGPT. Yeah. So everything they use, instrumental, thank you, Lena, everything they use within that kind of concept, that kind of approach to learning a language is only practically oriented. But you gave me a cool idea now. We could join, and with Olya also and her students, we could work on a new research and start from ChatGPT and then investigate the motivation backwards.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, and maybe at least in some words we will touch upon the issue which is in the chat, right? Well, first of all, we are grateful for sharing the results of the research, and do you have open questions in the questionnaire for students to give reasons for their preferences in using the ChatGPT? And in any case, how would you explain that reflective self-regulation was a less common strategy?
Okay, thank you for the question. Yes, we had a couple of open questions in the questionnaire. Pretty much what happened is that students skip open-ended question because, expected, because it takes time for them to type. And at the same time, they're not familiar when you formulate the question, like you need to make the wording so they understand what the idea is, because they don't want to make mistakes, so they leave it out. What I can do, Tatiana, I can share the questionnaire and the results and share the complete research study so you can search for details, and we can talk, of course, after the conference or at some other time about the results of this research.
All right, that would be a great advantage, I guess. Well, so that is it at the moment, right? Thank you so much, really. Well, it was, I believe it was useful for everyone, not only for those, well, sorry, well, I'm doing something wrong. Okay, so, and now we proceed with our speakers. Well, our geography is getting still bigger, because now I would like to give the floor to Alicia Rodriguez-Alvarez, Professor, the Research Institute of Text Analysis and Applications, Spain. So you are given the floor, you're welcome.
Right, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you well, we can see you.
Right, just
Not
1
your
minute.
presentation yet.
I'm checking just my computer. And can you see the presentation?
Not yet.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Have you clicked on share, the arrow?
Can you see it now properly?
I'm afraid not.
Okay, so.
Are you sharing it? It's just, there is this arrow, the green one in the middle. Okay. Yeah, we can see it perfectly.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, first of all, I want to thank the Department of English for Engineering #1 and the Faculty of Linguistics of Igor Sikorsky King Polytechnic University for the organization of this conference. Now in this session, I would like to present the Amerlex-Database, which is a diachronic corpus of Amerindian terms in the Spanish and English sources, which has been developed in 2 stages. The first stage encompasses the texts included in the period from 1519 to 1650, and the second period is 1650 to 1740. So we're looking back now to texts, historical texts. Let me see, because I cannot change. Right, okay. So I don't know, okay now. So
yeah, you are doing all right. Sorry, it's changing, it's fine.
Okay, thank you very much, because I cannot see it. So I'm going to focus on the creation of the database, the structure that the database has adopted, and the information that it contains. And why a lexical database? Well, a lexical database allows the researchers to include vast amounts of different information from various sources across long periods of time, which allows us to make researches much richer. What I'm going to show is the workflow we have followed, the different steps we have followed in the compilation of the Amerlex database, beginning with the definition of the objectives, the definition of the corpus, the structure of the database, how we collected the data, how we entered the data in the database, the validation and the quality control systems we followed, the user interface, how we tested the database, and finally the deployment and maintenance. Some of the steps will not be checked completely because we have very strict time limitations. So every single step we have in the database compilation, we have to take decisions, which is one of the much more important phases. No, for example, in the web of annotation, which is used only by the researchers, and we have to include data, we have to take decisions about the kind of data we have to include, which of course we're going to be afterwards checked by the users in the search engine with data. For example, the lexical entry we are going to follow, if we are going to include different spellings due to the different spellings we are facing, since we are working with historical texts when the spelling was not standardized yet, the semantic fields, the language of origin, etc. So these are decisions we have to take. The focus of a study of the database was another thing we have to decide from the very beginning. So we are going to focus on Americanism, and we understand Americanism as the Spanish words and phrases that have been Americanized to denote new realities of the American territory, and also Amerindian words that have been integrated into text written in Spanish English. The sources we used to determine if these words were really Americanism were the Diccionario de la Real Academia Española, Diccionario de Americanismos, although those Spanish dictionaries that have been produced by Latin American Spanish language academies. But since we were also dealing with English texts, and English texts were one of the main entrance sources for Spanish words into the English language in the Renaissance, in the early modern English period, we thought it was a good idea to take a full advantage of the examination of these works to also study Spanish loans. So the Spanish loan words that have been also introduced through these works, but which were non-Americanized Spanish terms. So words brought from Spain that didn't undergo any semantic change in American territories. But it was to take full advantage of such an effort we were making, reading so many texts. So the objectives we established for the compilation of the database were the following ones: to create an online database to document the first written testimonies of lexical Americanisms in Spanish and English texts about America, reaching up to the first half of the 18th century, to record the Spanish words introduced in English texts about the Spanish America, to analyze the vitality of Americanisms through different variables or dimensions, the year, number of occurrences, language of origin, etc., to compare the presence of lexical Americanisms in Spanish and English texts about America, since we were dealing with both texts, and to enrich the database with metadata that could lead to richer and more complete research products. The corpus of study. So this is another decision we had to make. So we decided to use 16th, 17th, and 18th century Spanish and English texts, both in prose and verse, about the new American territories colonized by Spaniards. And this includes a wide temporal scope, which allows us to have good results from different American territories, as we are going to see later on, and from a variety of authors. So these different dimensions and variables allows us to have comparative studies. I'm going to, due to time limitations, I'm going to focus here today only on the English corpus of the first stage until 1650. So they comprise text originally written in English and also translations from Spanish. It includes a variety of texts. We have travel books, we have natural histories, geographical descriptions, etc. This sums up 44 texts from different geographical areas. So we have texts dealing with more than 2 areas. Others are only dealing with Caribbean territories, other ones about Mesoamerica, South America, North America, etc. We only deal with first edition and digitized texts. The users, this is another decision. So who are going to use the database? Normally experts and researchers working on Amerindian loanwords in Spanish and English, experts and researchers analyzing Spanish words in English. Now we are trying to, I don't have time, but now we are working on a different database for children, for museums, so more for general public, but well, this is another story. Right. about the web of annotation. The web of annotation is the space where researchers are working. They are including all the data, and it's not accessible to the user. So we have to decide the information we are going to include as researchers. So this is the what and the how. So the structure, how we are going to present this information to the researchers. So in a very clear way, so that the researchers don't have problems when including all this information. This is a snapshot of the web of annotation of the lemma. The web of annotation is, it has different sections about the lemmas, the authors, the works, etc. Now I'm going to show you some of them. So this is about the lemma, where when we include one word. So when we are reading a text, this is the normal how we work. Normally we are reading one of these historical texts. For example, this one, and I'm reading, this is by John Hortop's The Rare Travels of John Hortop. I'm reading the text and I find, normally by the way they are in a different font, I find this word anacotes. This is an Americanism with a very different spelling from the one we usually have in Spanish. So we copy the text in the, this is the sample text we will copy later on in the database, and this is the spelling I want to record. So I go here, I record the spelling, but this is just a spelling from which lemma. So this is the lemma that we have already included here. So we have the lemmas, all the different spellings. This is very useful information for historical linguistics. Different lemmas, but we also can add the category, grammatical category, the language of procedence, in this case Nahuatl, and the semantic domain, so that finally we can work and play with all these variables for our research. Then once we have included the lemma and all the different spellings, they are included here on the left-hand side, so then we don't have to copy again the lemma or the spelling once it has been recorded. Then we move to the authors. Here we have more information about the authors of the works. We have, for example, the origin, African, British, Creole, etc., the country of procedence, the birth date, the country of death, the death date, and all the works we are going to include from the same author, etc. This is an example. So we have John Hawkins. We have included John Hawkins in the corpus. He's British, and that's one item we include here. From England. This is where he died, in Puerto Rico. And these are the works we have included in the database. Once one work has been included, again, it appears on the left-hand side, because this is necessary to continue with the compilation of the data. Right. So once the title is included, we can also say if it is a translated work or not. In this case, it is a translation. We can include the original title, the name of the translator, and of course, the name of the original author. If we move to this next section, which is lemmas and the works, here we have more information. We can include, this is the word we're working on. This we can choose the works where this word is included, which is going to appear later on. So it's going to appear here once we click on it. Obras vinculadas, so the works associated to the selected lemma. And then we can record here the number of occurrences of one word in this work, which is also essential to know the number of occurrences, the frequency of the word, etc. Then, of course, it is important to see the context, and we record here one sentence or two sentences from each work where the word is recorded. Every new spelling is recorded here because I mentioned that the spellings are very important. And finally, we have a data sheet. A data sheet includes all the information that the researchers have been incorporating into the database. Well, so far, this is the web of annotation. So the users don't see any of this. This is just the web of annotation the researchers are working on. And all this information will be transferred later on to the search engine. So this is what you see. So now if you go to the website of the Amerlex-Database, this is what you see. So you cannot see all the previous screens I have been showing, but which are necessary to include all the information. Well, once you're here, this is the search engine for the user's interface. You have either simple searches or advanced searches. Imagine you are reading one of these historical texts and you find one strange spelling. For example, maize, written in this way. Well, if you write in a simple search the word here, maize, you will get this information. So you will see that it comes from this word, this Spanish word, maize. It has 1,978 occurrences in the corpus, and these are all the different spellings that are recorded in the corpus. These are all the works where this word maize is recorded. And if you click on one of these, you will get the example, the lemma with all the information we have, the researchers have included about the lemma, and also information about the work. You can order the information chronologically or alphabetically by author or alphabetically by the work as well. Imagine you are interested now, once you are exposed to all the spellings, imagine now you are interested in the different spellings. So you click on the spelling and you get where, in which work this spelling is recorded. Or maybe Maisium, you're interested in Maisium, so you can play with it. Well, this is the basic search. But imagine you want to combine different variables, different dimensions. So you go to the advanced search, and here you can play with all these, include the information you want to search for. Imagine so you can search for the grammatical category, or the language of precedence, or the semantic domains. Imagine we are interested in all the lemmas, which are Americanisms, dealing with social, political, and administrative organization. So this is what you get. So these are the filters you have selected: social, political, and administrative organization, and Americanism, and you get all the number of occurrences. So the lemmas are included in 92 works, and 44 different lemmas are associated to this: adelantado, ahillo, alcalde mayor, etc., in all these works. Imagine that now I'm interested in the same, but I want to restrict and I want to filter just in English works, not in Spanish works, because the other search was very general. So I do exactly the same, but I will move now to the original works, and I go to the variable language, and I choose English, and this is what I get. So these lemmas related to this semantic domain, organization, etc., now in English. These lemmas appear just in 9 works, so there is a filter, so we have fewer works, and 8 different lemmas: adelantado, alcalde mayor, cacique, cimarrón, etc. We can continue playing with variables, so we can work within the original works, with the translated works, so we can maybe search for the translator, or the language of translator, etc., or the authors, or even we can search the texts. So imagine, this is one example I'm interested in. In fact, this is one of the works we have been working on nautical terms, particularly used in Spanish America, registered in text written originally in English. Well, I'm not going to do the search now because it takes a little bit of time, but this is the result we got. Text originally written in English, we have 164 occurrences in 28 works, and 4 different lemmas: balsa, canoa, huracán, and piragua. If we filter just in, we are interested just in the translations, we see that the results are very similar, but we get different results. For example, here we have a different lemma. So we can compare translations, text written originally in English, Spanish text, English text, etc. So the authors, the languages, the semantic domains, etc. We can play with all the different variables that have been included in the database. Well, so far, we have included 2,000 entries and counting, because we are still working. Remember, I mentioned we have 2 stages. We have completed the first stage, and we are now in the second stage. The advantages of this database is it has a scalable design, so we can include more work. So it's a project, an ongoing work, which we can continue including and introducing more and more lemmas. And we can include more languages as well, so there is no problem. We can include German, French. In fact, this is something we are exploring just now. And we can include more functionalities. So it is a database which is not fixed. We can change some of the variables. And that's all. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I believe it was very profound, very interesting. If you have some questions, you are most welcome. Dear guests, I do not see whether somebody has got a hand, maybe some comments. maybe you are studying some other Corpora, because here we have got a comparison of the Spanish and the English language, right?
May I
Yeah,
ask a
you are
question?
welcome. Yeah, we have got a question.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Nadia Doronkina, Associate Professor.
No, first of all, I should say that this research is a tremendous
Yes.
contribution in history. It's tremendous. It's very, very important. But not only Spanish and English spoken people took part in the process of colonization. So, do you plan in future to extend your database, incorporating, for example, such languages as Portuguese and French? Because people speaking these languages also played a vital role in colonization, and these countries are your neighbors, and they belong to the same group. No,
Yes.
Roman group.
Yes, in fact, we limited ourselves to Spanish and English because of the members of the team. So we have quite a high number of members of Spanish
Maybe
language
future.
and English language. Now we have people from working in French, and they are working, but not exactly in the primary text, but in secondary text. They are working on the introduction of Amerindian terms in dictionaries, although they are planning to see primary sources as well. So it depends, because as you were saying, this is it's a massive amount of information we have, and we need big teams to work, because we have to examine the works from cover to cover. We have to read the whole text, and you need people who are, let's see, it is 16th century French, 16th century English, which is not the same. Sometimes the words are written in a very weird spelling, so you have to be very used to that language, the language of the time, to identify these strange spelling. Sometimes it took us a long time even to identify Spanish words in this text, because they adopted such strange spellings that sometimes it took us a long time to identify, mainly Amerindian words, because the spelling was not standardized. So they just copied the words in the way they heard the word, and the pronunciation was a phonetic spelling. So sometimes it took us time. But yes, Nadia, we're thinking about introducing other languages. That was your question.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm trying to find one more question. Just a second. I need to open our chat, because there was a question in the chat. Well, how have I lost it?
Dana, I can help you.
Yeah. Okay, I have. Yeah. So first of all, once again, there are some of the praises. Well, very interesting work, right? And the question is like this: is database currently available to be used? Well,
Yes.
is it just for, at the moment, only for research purposes?
Not the whole database, but there is a sample, so you can use it and to see basic results, because we are just correcting some of the sample text, because we have identified some mistakes. So we are correcting at the same time that we are introducing data. We are correcting previous data, but you can use it. It is available in the. And let me. I can now in the chat. If you want me to write down the website, I can do it.
Okay, yeah, right. Thank you so much. Well, I believe that, well, at this moment, well, we may just think this presenter one more time, right? If no more questions, if no more comments, then I have the honor to pass my duty to my colleague, to Tatiana Noshkova, PhD in education, lecturer, and she will moderate the meeting instead of me. Well, but I will be staying here. Most likely, I will have some questions, whatsoever, considerations. So once again, thanks a lot to everyone, at least at this moment, for your inspiring, thoughtful, insightful presentations and very interesting speeches.
Thanks to my dear colleague Tatiana for leading this moderation so far. I will take over now, and So I would like, now let me welcome our next speakers. These are senior lecturers, Maria Fernanda Irozabal and Carla Miotti. They are from Catholic University of Salta, Argentina. And they will talk about bridging intercultural encounters through the Global Compact on Education. So dear colleagues, the floor is yours. You can start sharing your presentation.
Thank you very much. I'll be sharing the presentation in a minute. Let's see.
Yeah, we can see
it. Great. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us today. Our presentation is titled Bridging Intercultural Encounters Through the Global Compact on Education. And so in this presentation, we will explore why intercultural competence matters in English teaching today, how Lidicode's model can help us implement it, and how Pope Francis' Global Compact on Education provides an ethical framework that connects education with human dignity, inclusion, and also sustainability. So, as we know, globalization has reshaped the way we communicate today because we interact with people from various backgrounds on a daily basis, either digitally and or face-to-face. So, English today requires more than just linguistic competence. It requires intercultural competence, which is the ability to engage with difference, to avoid misunderstandings, and also to negotiate meaning across cultures. So as EFL teachers, our role goes beyond that of teaching grammar and vocabulary. We should prepare learners that are able to communicate interculturally. So the communicative approach that is rooted in Halliday's systemic functional linguistics brought forward the idea of communicative competence, that is, teaching students to use language in meaningful and authentic ways. However, as English has become a lingua franca, communicative competence alone is not enough. So scholars such as Byram, Alptekin, and Crumsh argue that we need intercultural competence in order to communicate and to navigate communication across borders with openness, empathy, respect, and a critical awareness of one's own and others' cultural practices. And that is how the EFL classroom turns into what Crumsh, where culture and languages meet and where we can negotiate meaning. Well, one of the most influential frameworks for intercultural communicative competence is Lidicode's model, which just suggests 4 stages. First, noticing similarities and differences across cultures, then comparing new cultural input with our previous experiences or background knowledge, then reflecting critically on assumptions and different perspectives, and finally interacting by applying the new cultural knowledge in communication. It is important to highlight that the key idea behind this model is to understand intercultural learning not as static or linear, but as a process that goes from theory to from reflection to action. So we've talked about intercultural awareness, so we can think, okay, what is culture, right? So whenever we teach English, we're also teaching culture, because there's no language without culture and there's no culture language. The problem that sometimes we tend to reduce culture to some surface level elements, traditional dishes or clothing or festivals or music, when in reality culture goes much deeper than that, because it also involves ways of thinking, communicative practices, beliefs, and values. So if we only teach superficial aspects, superficial elements in our classrooms, we risk, first of all, reinforcing stereotypes about different cultures, and also certain cultures that are traditional and American ones. So as EFL teachers, it is important that we present culture as something dynamic and diverse for students, and also it is important that we expose them to different Englishes in the classroom. So how can we, well, the LiDiCode's model suggests that we can apply this to in our classrooms, first of all by noticing, because our students can identify cultural elements in, for example, texts or videos that we present. Then comparing, they can make a comparison between what the new input with their own practices, cultural practices, then reflecting, that is reflecting on why those differences exist, and how assumptions or stereotypes sometimes shape communication. And finally, interacting, that is using these new insights in tasks like debates, role play, or virtual exchanges. So in this way, materials in the language classroom stop being static carriers of information, and they become tools for intercultural encounters.
Okay, good morning. Thank you, Carla. Thank you very much to the organizers for your invitation, and thank you to the participants for being here today. Going on with what Carla has just shared, I am going to refer to the Global Compact on Education, which is consistent with intercultural language teaching and LiDiCode's model. The Global Compact on Education, launched by Pope Francis in 2019, is a document which is an invitation to build an educational alliance that promotes fraternity, peace, and care for our common home. As Pope Francis expressed, and I quote, "It is an invitation to unite our efforts in a broad educational alliance to form mature individuals capable of overcoming divisions and antagonism, and to restore the fabric of relationships for the sake of a more fraternal humanity." The Global Compact on Education includes 7 commitments: to make human persons the center of education. Number 2, listening to the voices of children and young people. Number 3, promoting the full participation of girls and young women. Number 4, empowering the family as the first and essential place of education. Number 5, welcoming and including the most vulnerable and marginalized. Number 6, rethinking economy and politics. And number 7, safeguarding our planet, or our common home, as Pope Francis called it. Each of these commitments has a list of suggestions that you can find for suggestions for educators and how to apply and work these commitments in our classrooms and in our educational institutions. Next, please. All right, so how can we link the Global Compact on Education to intercultural communicative competence? Placing the human person at the center is related or echoes the reflection on identity in LiDiCode's model, for example. Listening to the voices of young people matches our call to respect learners' perspectives, to value and respecting their multiple perspectives. Welcoming the vulnerable aligns with empathy and openness. Promoting women's participation reflects inclusivity and, of course, focuses on gender equality. And safeguarding our common home reminds us that interculturality also involves ecological awareness and sustainability. That is one of the aspects of the deep culture that Carla mentioned before. So it is important to highlight, as I said before, that the vademecum, which you can find easily find online, includes practical suggestions for educators in each commitment. These are ideas, suggestions that can be used in all levels and with students of all ages. So what are the pedagogical implications? What does this mean for our classrooms? First of all, we have to bear in mind that within this combined framework of intercultural communicative competence and the Global Compact on Education, teachers act as cultural mediators, modeling openness and respect in our classrooms. Remember that what we teach, what we do in our classrooms has an impact outside our classrooms. So just as the family is the basic unit of socialization, so is the classroom. So what we do there, what we teach our students, yes, and how we mediate, it has an impact with what students do and how they behave outside the classrooms. Second, we should think that materials must be diverse, authentic, and free of stereotypes as far as possible. Third, critical thinking should be a core skill to help learners question assumptions and explore alternatives. And finally, technology offers real opportunities for intercultural encounters through online platforms and, for example, COIL projects, which we will refer to them briefly in a minute. So what we did is assemble a set of resources like poems, songs, films, book extracts that align with both intercultural competence and the 7 commitments in the compact. And we are going to share very quickly some of them with you today. For example, here you can see a list of poems that range from A1 to C1 level, and that focus on different aspects of the Lydicode's model, circular model, and that can be used aligned with commitments in the Global Compact on Education. You will see next a very short poem called If You Ever Meet a Whale, which is a poem that can be used with A1, A2 level and with young learners, that uses repetition and rhythm to spark curiosity and care. This poem can easily be adapted to refer to other animals. For example, if you ever meet a fox, if you ever meet a puma, for example, here in Salta, Argentina, each version inviting students to reflect on the fragility of the ecosystem and the ethics of human-animal relationships. And you can put into practice, you know, reflecting, comparing, interacting, so that students can think about their local, you know, culture and on other people's cultures. Another poem we use, which is really interesting and thought-provoking is called Refugees by Brian Bilston. Because of time constraints, we are not going to share the poem with you, but you can find it online. This is an interesting video about the poem, which, of course, as you can see there, tackles with the issue of refugees and the voices of migrants, the marginalized and the vulnerable. This is a very particular poem because it's a palindrome poem, meaning that it can be read top to bottom or bottom to top, with radically different meanings. The first reading reflects exclusion, fear, and rejection, and the reversed reading flips the narrative to one of empathy, welcome, and shared humanity. And you can make students work with different perspectives and with helping them, place themselves in different shoes and in different perspectives, and how perspective and framing can shift ethical stance. Carita, you can go on, please.
Yes. Okay, next we have TED Talks, which are especially valuable in the classroom because they offer authentic voices, global perspectives, and expert insights on different social, cultural, and ethical issues. Many available online. We chose to work with how to build with clay and with the community, because in this TED Talk, the speaker, Kare, not only speaks not just about architecture, but also about empowerment, how building with local material and local people can transform and shape society. So it's a powerful way to have our students reflect on responsibility and agency in real life contexts. Then next we have a set of resources that includes songs and video clips, because we believe that while lyrics offer rich ground for exploring metaphors, discourses, and authentic voices, is just crucial. So most videos carry symbolic imagery, emotional cues, and they shape the way a message is received and interpreted. So it is important to have our students decode media critically. These are some examples, but for example, we worked with the song The Man by Taylor Swift, which invites reflection on roles and media stereotypes, and also Chained to the Rhythm by Katy Perry, which critiques consumerist culture and social passivity.
Other resources we use are, of course, books or book extracts. This is a book extract from I Shall Not Hate by Iseldine Arbelage, mapped to C1 level, but of course, it can be adapted to other levels as well. Arbelage is a Palestinian-Canadian physician and peace advocate, often called the Gaza Doctor. He was the first Palestinian to hold a staff position at an Israeli hospital where he treated both Israeli and Palestinian patients. This is an extract of the epilogue of his book, where Arbelage shares a series of personal teachings, lessons on integrity, empathy, agency, and the transformative power of women and families. These reflections are deeply intercultural and profoundly ethical, touching on issues like trauma, resilience, and the human capacity to choose peace over vengeance. As you can see so far, we try to include all voices and all Englishes, as Carla mentioned before. So it's not just British or American as it used to be some years ago, but we try to include all voices and all Englishes to become really intercultural and to make our students develop critical thinking and the capacity to understand different perspectives, and only then be able to take a stance, right?
Great. Next, we have a picture book that is called Last Stop on Market Street by Peña, which follows the story of CJ, a young boy, and his grandmother as they rode the city bus through different neighborhoods. Now, through dialogue and pictures, this book prompts reflection on diversity in everyday contexts, inclusion and intergenerational wisdom, which is very important because the grandmother's voice is really powerful in this story. Now, continuing with the idea of that images are worth 1,000 words, we've also included a series of pictures. The first one that we have on the left are Instagram posts by Lucas Arvila that invite us to reflect on how conflict is represented in social media and how it can evoke empathy, provoke questions, or even challenge passive consumption. The one in the middle, an award-winning poster called We Are All Connected, that of course can have different interpretations, but it emphasizes cooperation and ecological harmony. And finally, we included our Argentinian cartoon character, Mafalda, because of her use of humor to criticize social inequalities or social issues. Great. And of course, we can also offer our students experiential learning, where intercultural competence is built through dialogue and reflection. We included two options. Of course, there are many more. One is story circles from UNESCO's Intercultural Competencies Manual, and COIL, Collaborative Online International Learning. Both are adaptable to all levels, and they help learners to move from noticing to acting. So it would be a good idea to close, let's say, the pedagogical circle. So both of these options connect students across borders and across differences while encouraging intercultural engagement in real life contexts.
Okay, last but not least, we are going to share here a short list of short films and commercials that we also use in our classrooms. This category combines short media, films, and ads that spark emotional engagement and critical reflection. Their brevity makes them accessible, yet powerful tools for raising awareness. And again, you can use them with students of all levels, right? They are also great for developing visual and media literacy, apart from working with ICC and the Global Compact on Education commitments. The first one, The Other Pair, by Zara Rozek, is a short film told from a child's perspective that highlights and encourages learners to practice perspective taking, to compare experiences, and to reflect on empathy and human rights. And then we work with different commercials, for example, Like a Girl by Always, Real Beauty Sketches by Dove, and Disability Awareness by from the European Disability Forum. These short commercials are very effective, really thought-provoking, and you can use them to raise awareness about gender stereotypes, about identity, about self-perception, and of course about inclusion and accessibility. So as to, well, finish our presentation, we can say that intercultural education in EFL classrooms is not an optional component anymore, but a stance that integrates language, culture, and learning. It is clear then that we should go beyond teaching linguistic skills. We should help our learners to acquire intercultural dispositions for meaningful participation in a diverse and interconnected world. By uniting models, by combining Lidicode's pedagogical model with the Global Compact on Education's ethical commitments, we hope to promote a holistic approach on education to empower our students to become global and committed citizens. And I would like to finish by quoting Pope Francis, who stated that education is above all a matter of love and responsibility handed down from one generation to another. And this is what we want to do in our classrooms. And it is also important to mention that this vademecum is for the world, right? No matter what religious group you belong to, what culture you belong to, the idea is to invite all of us to become real, global, and committed citizens. And that would be all. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you both for this engaging presentation. And now we have time for questions. And actually, I have the first question. It's like a double question. First of all, do you have any international students in your classroom? And if so, how do you deal with intercultural difference inside the classroom?
Okay, well, we don't have international students in our classrooms unless we work with, for example, COIL projects, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as we said before, we try, even though we don't have international students in our classrooms, we have students with different backgrounds. The Catholic University is a private university here in the north of Argentina, but we have students from all walks of life, let's say. And we try to pay attention to those microcultures that we have inside our classrooms. And from our humble position, try to be inclusive, understanding, and promote, understanding among the classmates. If we notice that there are certain cultural differences, even if they belong to or they come from, the same city or nearby cities, and that is something that we do from the very first day of classes, so that students become aware very early on about how to acknowledge and work with differences within their microculture. Yes? Mm-hmm. And then if we have the opportunity to organize collaborative online learning sessions, as our students are students that belong to the teacher training course and the translation course, they are kind of familiar with interacting with international students. There are no serious issues, but they do it more naturally, I would say.
Thank you, Seri. Thank you very much for your answer. And there is one more question. Nicole, please.
Yes, thank you so much. That's a comment. Very interesting and inspiring work you do. I really believe in this multilingual, because actually we raised our two children four-lingual, so they are fluently in four languages. Since my husband is Dutch, I'm German. They are born in Norway and went to a British school, so it's so important. So guess how shocked I was when last Thursday our Minister of Education went out saying that there are too many subjects in the early years of primary school, so she is going for taking out English from year 1 to 3. So yes, no words for that. But thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. And I see, Nicole, that your children are, well, plurilingual. And we like to use, the idea of interculturality. They are intercultural, not multicultural, because if you are multicultural, you may acknowledge the different cultures and it's just there. Now, if you are intercultural, you not only acknowledge, but put all these cultures together. So that's why we align with LiDiCode's idea of becoming intercultural more than multicultural, you know? So I think that's great.
Yes, so good.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, then I think we can proceed. So again, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yes, and we
Thank you,
will
everyone.
move on to the next speaker. So now I want you to welcome the Assistant Professor Lena Tica from University of Kragujevac from Serbia with the talk Students' Digital Engagement and Attitudes Toward Call in ESP Context. So Lena, are you ready? The floor is yours. You can start.
Yes, I'm ready. I just need confirmation from your side that you can see the presentation that I shared.
Yes, we can
Sorry,
see
yeah.
it.
I
Full
can see
screen.
nodding.
Great, yes.
Okay, hello to everyone. Good morning. It's still morning in Serbia. My name is, as you heard, Lena Tica, and I come from the Faculty of Technical Sciences, Čačak, from the University of Kragujevac, Serbia. Again, you've heard the presentation that was held by my colleague Ivana Kresmanović. I will now present another research of ours that is called Students' Digital Engagement and Attitudes Towards Call in ESP English for Specific Purposes context. But I will be talking about the attitudes of Serbian students. Okay, so just to see how to share slides. Yeah, that's it. So let's just have a quick overview of my talk today. I will start with the short introduction to computer-assisted language learning. I'm sure that you're familiar with it. Then I'll talk about theoretical framework of our research, about the aim and methodology, and core part of the presentation will be about the findings, about students' attitudes to computer-assisted language learning, and about their perceived improvement of all language learning skills. And about the last one will be about the frequency of their digital tool usage. And finally, I'll wrap out with some conclusions at the end. Okay, so for the introduction, we all know that today's students, they are often called digital natives. I think I've heard that term today. They are also called hyper-connected generation. I have one more term that I stumbled across recently, like digital residents and digital visitors. Maybe you know the difference between the two. But the point is that they lived with computers, with the internet all their life, so they are naturally inclined towards technology and learning. And computer-assisted language learning, or CAL, actually builds on this affinity because it offers flexible, it offers dynamic, personalized approaches to learning and to language acquisition as well. It offers global collaboration, it removes barriers of time and space, distances, and it gives not only to students, but also to us teachers, the unlimited online resources. It promotes learner autonomy and keeps students engaged, but still, we are all aware that not all the students are the same, that some students still prefer some traditional learning approaches, some face-to-face learning approaches. So I was wondering why that is the case. What we wanted to find out is whether, when it comes to university students, whether maybe their academic field or what they study the field of study, whether it influences their attitudes towards computer-assisted language learning, and also whether their gender can influence their attitudes. So we will see the results. They were not what we expected at first. But first let's say something about computer-assisted language learning. It has been with us for more than 50 years. Each new wave of technology found itself in English language classroom, and at first it was defined rather narrowly by Levy in 1997. It was defined as the study of computer applications in language teaching classrooms, but then we have a broader definition by Beatty in 2003, who said that CALL is any process in which technology can help learners improve their language skills. Today, when we say computer, we don't mean only some desktop or laptop. The word computer covers a wide range of devices, mobile phones, tablets, all applications, even AI now. So it's not only CALL today, it's iCALL, like intelligent computer-assisted language learning. It can also be AIL, maybe you've heard this term as well. It's artificial intelligence-assisted language learning and so on. But let's say that CALL covers all of them, that it can be used as broad as a dynamic field, broad concept, dynamic field, multidisciplinary field that combines all of these different methods. So our main research aim, as I said, was to explore Serbian university students' perceptions in ESP English for specific purposes settings. So we mentioned that we work at an engineering faculty, so that's why we wanted to find out that. So we wanted to examine also how students perceive technology in improving their language skills, I mean all language skills, as you can see here, and to investigate frequency of using digital tools for English language learning. And we wanted to identify the differences between different groups based on field of study, gender, and previous English proficiency levels. I will explain that further. Our sample consisted of 183 university students, so it was quite a considerable sample. When it comes to gender, it was pretty balanced, so 50.3 female students, 47.5 male students, and the rest didn't want to disclose their gender. When it comes to fields, you can see it in this figure on the left, 59% were studying technological or engineering fields, while the rest was in humanities or social sciences. Okay, so the design of the study, it was rather a quantitative study, and independent variables were field of study, gender, and English proficiency, while dependent variable were their attitudes towards CALL. So the questionnaire, which was distributed to the students via Google Forms, consisted of 3 parts. The first part, of course, asked them about demographics, age, gender, field of study, English level. It was self-assessed English level knowledge. I know that it would be better that we conducted a real test, but it would be such a huge scale research. And we also asked them about computer competence, but as majority of them said that their ICT skills are advanced, we didn't want to investigate further differences in that. When it comes to English level, the majority was in the group of intermediate. 1/3 of them was advanced students, and just a few of them opted for a beginner option when it comes to English language knowledge. And the second part of the questionnaire, which was a huge part, consisted of a questionnaire that was previously designed by Nagy and Habuk in 2018 and was further validated through numerous studies. It consists of 28 items on 4-point Likert scale. We didn't want to change that original 4-point Likert scale from strongly disagree to strongly agree, and it asked for their attitudes towards computer-assisted language learning, and it was divided into internal factors and external factors. I'll explain further. And the last, what we included in this questionnaire were the key questions: how much can technology improve language skills? Again, we put a scale from 1 to 5, and how often do you use specific digital tools for language learning? And there was a list of 20 tools that they could also rate on a scale from 1 to 5. For the analysis, we used SPSS. First, we started with descriptive statistics, then we used independent sample t-tests, one-way, ANOVA, and so on. Okay, so here are the results. These were previously published in one conference proceedings. You can see the table that shows how they responded to internal factors and external factors. Just bear in mind that the Likert scale was from 1 to 4. So this result, 2.80 and 2.77, is actually intermediate to high, moderate to high. It's not low. This shows that their internal factors are intermediate to high, both internal and external. When I say internal, it means their feelings. Are they happy when they use ICT for their language learning? Are they satisfied, and so on? When we say external, that means, for example, motivating role of teacher, some tasks that they can do, and so on. So that's the difference between internal and external factors. So the results showed that ICT, they had a high acceptance of ICT as supporting their strategies and classroom integration. The lowest mean score, 2.64, was internal personal significance. What does this mean? That they do not yet consider ICT indispensable in their English language learning, so they can do without it in a way. Okay, and the highest mean score, 3.03, was for motivating role of teachers. So we as teachers, and the whole conference is actually about that, are very important in their English language learning. So finally, to the differences that we wanted to see, when it comes to field of study, no differences were shown. Honestly, I expected that there will be some differences, that, for example, students of IT will appreciate ICT tools more than students of philology, for example, but that was not the case. Only exception was found for external task-oriented strategies, which were a bit higher for tech or engineering students. This means, this can suggest that they appreciate like task-structured work more than students of law, philology, psychology, and so on. When it comes to gender, also no differences were found. You can see it on the right, and the only exception was for external use of ICT tools, which was slightly higher in female students. This was later shown for the tool usage. I will tell you that later as well. Okay, and now the main part, perceived improvement of their language skills. When we asked them to what extent can technology improve their language skills, the results were pretty high. So you can see the mean scores. The highest mean scores were for listening and vocabulary. The lowest were from grammar and pronunciation. I didn't expect that the lowest will be for pronunciation, but here it is. And again, findings showed no differences by gender or by field of study. Only significant differences were seen by their previous English knowledge level. How more advanced students tended to rate grammar and vocabulary more than lower students with a lower English language knowledge, let's say it like that. Okay, I'm not sure how big this is on your screen so that you can see which tools we asked them to rate, but on the right you can see, I'm not sure about the bar chart if you can see it well, but on the right you have top 5 most frequently used tools. Surprise, surprise, social networks, the first place, then web browsers, movies with English subtitles. I mentioned already that Serbian students rated themselves mostly as intermediate and advanced in their English language knowledge. And I'm sure that one of the reasons for that is that Serbian students, not Serbian students, but we in Serbia do not have dubbed movies. So all movies can only be with original audio and with subtitles. I'm not sure in other countries, but I know that in most countries in Europe, movies are dubbed. So that's why I really think that Serbian students are very good in English. They're very good at English. Okay, bottom 5 least used tools are online learning with native speaker, online courses, and dictionaries, both monolingual and bilingual. Why is that? Well, certainly it's easier to use automatic translator than online dictionary to type in and so on. Okay, the differences, we had differences here when it comes to gender. Female students used to use more blogs, bilingual dictionaries, learning apps, while male students, of course, online gaming. And when it comes to field of study, there were also differences here. Humanities used more podcasts, books, articles, dictionaries, while technical studies used more movies with or without subtitles. And when it comes to the last variable, English proficiency differences, that you can see also in this image on the right. So you can see that beginner students are in orange, while more advanced students are in green. That's the bar in green. So beginners rely more on translators and movies with subtitles, while advanced students use books, essay, encyclopedias, chat platforms, web tools. So this shows actually the main trend. And this was something that we expected, that higher proficiency students show less reliance on translators and subtitles, but they use academic tools more. Okay. And as for the conclusions, so students in Serbia show moderate to positive attitudes towards computer-assisted language learning, and technology supports all language skills, especially listening and vocabulary skills. No major differences across gender or discipline, just small differences by proficiency, while tool usage varies most by academic discipline or field of study, by gender, and by English proficiency levels. So for the final thoughts, I think that I'm right on time now. For the final thoughts, what does this mean? That not only students, but we as teachers must change. And that's what Nicole was talking at the very beginning of this conference, that professional development of teachers is very important. We must motivate our students. We must use digital tools in order for them to use them. And we, of course, must explore AI. This means that also institutions must provide trainings for all the teachers. This can also be connected to ICC skills that the previous talk was about. Institutions must provide more training for digital ICC skills and so on. Okay, so I'm not sure whether I missed the deadline. So thank you very much for listening, and I'm open for questions. I just need to stop sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can see you all
for
now.
the interesting findings and for the presentation, for the time management. Everything was great. Yes. See if we are ready for the questions.
Thank you.
Answer session.
Yeah, just some considerations as well. So concerning, recently it is very popular to use digital tools, especially ChatGPT in social media for making posts. I would like to ask you, what do you think about that? So doing professional posts in different social media with the help of ChatGPT.
I must say from personal experience, because I am an admin of some Instagram accounts, I must say it's very helpful, but it doesn't have personal touch. So we can see it. It shows when you use ChatGPT for posts. I hate LinkedIn because everybody is using ChatGPT for posts. So nothing is personalized there. When it comes to our students, I must admit that I changed a lot in my ways of teaching in the last 2 years. First, when ChatGPT occurred, when it appeared on the stage, Ivan and I discovered it together. We were so happy, so enthusiastic about it, and we introduced it in our classroom. So how we did poems with our students, for example, let's write now a poem in Eminem style and so on, and the students were delightful as well. But I needed to completely eliminate home writing assignments. You know, the only writing that we do is in the classroom. So that's what I think that we must change. We as teachers as well. We must change, the curriculum must change as well. Okay, and regarding your question, it is helpful, but still it can be seen and there is no personal touch. Yeah, and glass writing is back. You're right. Okay, I can see the question. Shall I read it? Tatiana, can I?
Yes, please, you can.
Okay, movies is inclusive of TV streaming series. Yes, everything. Yes, I didn't, not just movies, everything. We have vlogs as a separate tool, vlogs and blogs, but when it comes to videos, everything is in movies, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think the different apps, like language learning apps, aren't so popular? And courses, yeah, I saw it on the screen.
I wasn't so sure about it. I thought that they all use, for example, Duolingo. I like Duolingo for learning Italian, for example, but they do not. They are not very keen. I'm talking about my students. They are IT students. And when I actually asked them, we asked them, do you use ChatGPT for English? And they said, no, we use it for programming and for some simple tasks. So I think that somebody mentioned it before. English is used as a tool to do something else. But still, it's okay. I mean, we were more focused here on improving language skills, but still we find out that they use AI for other things, of course.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So if there are no comments, we can move on. Yes, we can proceed. Our next presenters are from Ukraine. These are associate professors Irina Morozova and Valeria Nikolaenko from Karazin-Kharkiv National University with their talk, Corpus Methods in Politeness Research, a case study of Neo-Victorian RPG forms discourse.
All right, thank you.
So, Irina,
my colleague will now start the presentation. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
can you see it? Is it okay?
Not yet. Just, yeah, now we can. Yeah, now it works. Well, first of all, of course, we would like to thank for your invitation to participate in such an interesting and, well, advanced forum, I would say, because really, well, corpus studies, be it in methodology or in linguistics, they do give us, as my colleague and I see, a really reliable basis for conclusions, for research. So our well, report today will focus on well, three areas. First of all, we are going to speak about studies in the theory of politeness, which actually from just, well, discourse studies have brought us to to cognitive pragmatics and then to application of corpus methods to our material. Then we will speak about the, as we call them, challenges, plus our solutions and our practical experience of applying Corpora to, well, to the speech, just to studies of stylizations of authentic speech. And finally, we base our presentation on Victorian role-play games. We will speak about it a bit later. We will explain what it is. Well, for me personally, it was really a, well, a discovery not so long ago. Well, the way people living in the modern world act as if they were the 19th century Victorians. So we'll speak about these role-play games and stylization of Victorian speech towards the end of the presentation. So a little bit of the theoretical grounds. I would first say that we started our investigation, and basically, like classical approach or politeness is studied using Brown and Levinson's theory, where it is seen, like politeness is seen as a strategic face management. The framework is built around negative and positive face wants, and politeness is understood as a set of conventional strategies used to mitigate face-threatening acts. This model really has been very influential, and well, like in our case, like in many cases as well, their theory is a starting point for everyone, well, for people working in politeness area. But in view of these authors, politeness is a strategic operation. So their theory becomes restrictive when we want to study stylized fictional or historically imagined discourse. Like, for example, Neo-Victorian role-playing games, where politeness is not just an attempt to avoid conflict, it's also a kind of aesthetic choice. So it brings us to a cognitive pragmatic term where politeness is approached is seen as a construal operation rather than a set of ready-made strategies. So it is a matter of how speakers model social relations. This approach turned out to be very useful for our material because it acknowledges that politeness is shaped by cultural knowledge and genre conventions. So, cognitive pragmatic approach captures the fact that authors, or players, which try to sound Victorian, base their own mental models on what Victorian politeness should be. And as for corpus methods, we consider that they are an essential point in politeness research, because here we have a large number of qualitative insights which definitely benefit from quantitative validation. Now, my colleague will introduce you to our materials and methods of analysis with the help of corpus linguistics. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. So since we are approaching our case study, I think a remark is due on what exactly we studied. So as Irina said, it was quite a discovery for us, this kind of material. That's why we were instantly interested in it. Well, basically, play-by-post RPGs, role-playing games, are kind of a collaborative storytelling game, digital one, where players write their characters and write the actions and dialogue. So that's why it's called play-by-post, because they just post certain fragments of the narrative and dialogue there. And this is a combination basically of creative writing and social simulation of role play. And there are different role-playing games, but what we focus on are two role-playing games that mimic the Victorian society. So that's Neo-Victorian RPG. And naturally, when mimicking Victorian society, players also perform stylization of their speech, of dialogue that they write for their characters. And here, politeness becomes as a stylization means, and of course, a world-building tool too. Here are just some examples of how the interface of such an RPG game may look to have a general idea. And finally, to corpus design, what we compiled. So first, we started by manually extracting dialogue entries from the posts on those forums. So we did not collect scene descriptions, only the dialogue. to study politeness by continuous sampling. And we used 2 Victoria-themed forums. And we ended up with 1,200 lines, a bit over it, and collected some metadata like gender, age of the character, but we did not collect any identifying information. And here's where we face the first methodological challenge, is finding reference corpus that would be that would provide meaningful results. And well, for the lack of time, I'm going to skip the logical steps, but what we ended up with was drama of the period. We selected 8 well-known Victorian plays that featured everyday social interactions to match what we saw in RPG corpus. And we balanced them by word count, which gave us another benefit of being able to compare absolute numbers, not really counting frequencies for each item, but yes, but character lines are different, but word count is similar. And then we processed our raw corpus in Tegent, lemmatized it, loaded it into EndConc for corpus treatment, and proceeded with running searches by markers, by keywords, and following up with manual concordance analysis to validate. And here was another challenge of selecting markers that Irina will talk about.
Yeah, this was definitely a challenge because politeness is very context dependent and, well, seems to us pretty fuzzy. So we needed some structure to see how speakers construct politeness in RPG games. So we organized our research around 5 broad groups, which are forms of address, apology and gratitude markers, hedges, modal verbs, and positive lexes. Next, please. So now let us have a look at each of these items and what we managed to find out in this respect. So as for forms of address, we got the data which showed a clear gap between historical usage of politeness forms and their modern stylization. In Victorian plays, we saw really great amount of address terms, both in endearments and formal titles. And in RPG, players use them far less often. And from a cognitive pragmatic perspective, this reflects how players construe relationships. Endearments sort of zoom in, signaling closeness, while formal titles zoom out, marking respectful distance. RPG players overwhelmingly use the former, revealing a bias towards contemporary interpersonal norms, even while attempting to sound as if they were Victorians. So on another slide, we see overall frequencies of apology and gratitude markers, which are roughly comparable across the 2 corpora. The key difference is stylistic. You can see it on the slide rather than quantitative. As for hedges, they appear far more frequent in RPG corpus than in the corpus of Victorian plays. The former has 243 units versus 99 in Victorian one. So which shows that contemporary players strongly favor negative politeness strategies that soften claims and make statements sound subjective or tentative. Here, there are some examples from the both RPG games and an example from the authentic Victorian play. Now, as for modal verbs, which can act as hedges, we examined all modals through the corpora and got well, these statistics, which then showed, I would say, drastic differences. So in role-play games, in Neo-Victorian discourse, modal verbs might, could, and would appear far more frequently. So these are classic softening devices that downgrade commitment and make utterances sound tentative. Past tense modals create conceptual difference and allow speakers to frame suggestions or requests which sound less face-threatening. While in the Victorian, in authentic Victorian plays, we see much greater or heavier use of deontic models like must, shall, or ought, which encode obligation and social hierarchy. On the other hand, RPG players tend to avoid this because they feel too forceful, for them if we apply modern standards. Instead, they instinctively turn to epistemic distancing models that protect social face, which again is shown on the next slide with our examples. One is, so Valeria will speak about now results as, but there is one more point we have just missed. Positive lexis, the last focus of our attention of the analysis of the material. So positive vocabulary and the results should be approached with caution because, well, the content bias can easily jeopardize the results. In our data, the overall numbers are indeed comparable across the two corpora, with a slight increase in the RPG sample. However, specific lexical choices differ across samples, which, well, is logical and could be expected. Now, our conclusions.
Well, I think that I'll talk about this corpus-driven insights
if possible.
when I present the conclusion, not to overuse the time. Well, basically, our main takeaway points from this investigation, where we try to apply corpus methods to the study of politeness, which is sometimes an elusive concept, is that corpus methods do reveal patterns that intuition alone would miss in politeness research. They allow to provide validation to some qualitative insights. And also, I would say that our corpora evidence allows us to see that Neo-Victorian players of RPG games, of RPGs, they blend Victorian politeness, their perception of Victorian politeness, what they associate with the speech of the period, with modern linguistic habits, which is evident in their navigation towards, in their gravitation towards negative politeness, more distant stance than Victorian authors actually did. And also what we found is that in Neo-Victorian stylized discourse, politeness acts as a creative engine, as a ludic resource practically, because what our corpus analysis allowed us to see and what we would not probably be able to see without analyzing the concordances is that politeness means often go in clusters, especially in Neo-Victorian stylized discourse, which shows us that probably speakers, Neo-Victorian users, they use politeness as a means of maintaining small talk, stylizing their speech to Victorian conventions, and also using this politeness as a means of promoting the narrative, as a means of maintaining the game. So these are our main findings, and thank you very much for listening to us. We're very open to questions.
Thank you very much for this detailed and valuable research. So, are there any insights, questions? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anna Ivanivna, are you talking? Because we can't hear you very well.
Yeah, I see a very nice comment in the chat about how, and actually, like using those, even when we collected the material from those forums, it feels immensely involving, even reading those. And I must say that a lot of players investing a great deal of effort into creating this Victorian atmosphere by language. So do we have questions or maybe comments?
I have a comment. May I say something? I just would like to say that, yeah, very, very interesting research and nice insights, really. And so your findings really reflect broader social norms at that time. So that's why it even adds the significance for this research. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you one more time. And we are moving on to the next presenter, and it will be Associate Professor Irina Struk from the State University of Information and Communication Technologies of Ukraine with the topic of phonetic deviations in the dubbing of the American sitcom Friends. Are you ready to start? Yes?
Yeah. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. We are delighted to be here today, and thank you so much for welcoming us and for giving us the opportunity to take part in this conference. So we would now like to show you a presentation in form of video. So it may take me a moment to figure out how to launch it properly on this platform. So thank you for your patience. And yeah, like this one. Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah, great. So today, together with Artur Hrantovic, we would like to invite you to look at something we usually try to hide, our mistakes, and see how they can become a powerful tool in translation. So our topic is deviation in the translation of Friends. So what is deviation? You can see working definition on this slide, but in simple terms, phonetic deviation is any intentional wrong pronunciation, like a dropped sound, an extra vowel, a distorted consonant, playful mispronunciation. In everyday life, we often try to cover these things up, and we correct ourselves. We feel a bit embarrassed. We hope no one noticed our mistakes, yeah? But in films and TV series, such actually mistakes or errors are never accidental, and they are carefully scripted and performed to show something about a character, like their mood, nervous, angry, excited, their social background or level of education, their attitude to another character, like still irony or flirting or disrespecting, or even their psychological state at a particular moment. So for our research, we analyzed all 10 seasons of Friends and identified only 30 phonetic deviations. So in the original English track, and it doesn't sound like a lot for such a huge corpus, yeah? So like 30 of them. And that is exactly why they are so valuable. So every single deviation is meaningful, and every single one is a small challenge for the translator and actually dubbing team in a whole. And we have grouped these deviations into 3 main clusters, like vowel dilation or addition. Yeah, for example, shortening or stretching a vowel to sound funny, or childish or emotional in general, then consonant deletion or still addition, like dropping a final consonant or adding an extra one to imitate hesitation or exaggeration. So phonemic substitution, like replacing one sound with another to create a pun, a foreign accent, or just a comic effect. Most of these moments appear in close, medium, and tight shots, where we clearly see the actor's lip movements and actually facial expressions. And this means that in dubbing, we cannot simply choose a nice lexical equivalent and forget about the form. Yeah. So that is why here phonetic precision is often more important than lexical equivalence, because the viewer literally reads, reads the lips together with the sound. That is why when we work with these definitions in translation, we have to pay special attention to type of shot. Yeah, how clearly we see the mouth, rhythm, and of course timing of the phrase, and of course lip synchronization. In other words, a tiny extra vowel, a swallowed consonant, or a playful mispronunciation can become a key to character building and a real test for translators' creativity. So the next slide, you will see a fragment from France. First, we will watch the video and focus on lip position, like timing, style, facial expression, yeah, all the things. Then we will compare the original English line with its Ukrainian dubbed version and see what happens to the definition, or actually deviation. So, is it preserved? Is it transformed into another type of deviation, or is it lost? And if so, what does the translation gain or lose? So let's move on to the clip and try to look at these mistakes not as problems, yeah, still problems, yeah, but as a great research opportunity and moments where translation, phonetics, and character design meet. Yeah, so let's listen to that.
Device. Radiator. 5 letters. Predator.
Okay, so in this example, we have Phoebe trying to help Ross solve a crossword puzzle. The word she suggests is correct, but it's too long to fit into the provided gap, so great, yeah, when talking about puzzle. To make it work, she simply drops some vowel sounds, shortening the word while still sorry, noise, it's not my fault. As a result, we get a compact clipped form, playful, but still functional. As you can see depicted on the screen in the Ukrainian dubbing, we see a similar strategy, like the meaning is preserved and the utterance is shortened as well. However, there is one important articulatory detail. In the Ukrainian version, the sound B appears, yeah, like B, and this sound naturally closes the lips, B, on screen, though Phoebe's mouth remains relatively open, so which creates a slight mismatch in lip synchronization. So what's to do actually here? Ideally, instead of B, we could select sounds like R, or just take out some letters and just leave that second part like Reya, but Reya, ones that keeps the lips open and relaxed, visually matching the articulation we see on the screen. This allows the translated line to remain both semantically correct and phonetically synchronized. So the next example is quite straightforward here. In this case, the Ukrainian document uses a direct and literal translation, so the semantic content remains unchanged. The only noticeable deviation is actually the name itself. So instead of Rachel, we hear Rachem, and this slight phonetic shift creates a mispronunciation similar to the original English version. Yeah, so where the name is intentionally distorted. So let's take a look at the fragment and observe how even a direct translation can imitate an author's technique and do it convincingly. Yeah, let's watch it.
Oh, she's not Rachel? What the hell's a Rachel? That's some stupid paleontology word that I wouldn't know because I'm just a waiter.
I am just a waitress. Yeah. So what is interesting here is that even though the Ukrainian sound m requires the lips to close more tightly, it actually does not disrupt lip synchronization, even in a medium or even in a tight short. Actually, which you can see depicted on the slide. Yeah. So articulation matches closely enough to reproduce the original comic effect. Yeah. So in this case, literal translation still allows us to retain the author's intention and humor, successfully mirroring the deviation through pronunciation rather than lexical choice. Actually, the next example is especially fascinating, and here we encounter a deliberate phonetic deviation based on accent imitation, so specifically a French accent. In the original, the word souchape, yeah, souchape de cuisine, becomes souchape, where the vowel is softened and actually shortened. Like echoing typical French articulation. So this creates humorous misunderstanding and adds actually character depth to the scene. Yeah, so let's watch it.
Speedy, this is Tim, my new sous chef. You're Monica's boss?
Actually, she's my boss. Sue is French for under.
I sous stand.
Yeah, like sous-stand. In the Ukrainian dubbing, the strategy is almost perfectly mirrored. Like the translators reproduce the same mechanism of deviation by transforming розумію into susumію, like su-розумію, preserving both the foreign accent flavor and the comic intent. Yeah, so importantly, this substitution supports excellent lip synchrony. The articulation, timing, rhythm visually align with what we see on the screen. So in this fragment, we observe not just translation, but successful phonetic adaptation that keeps the cultural humor intact. And now, let's look at one more example. Unfortunately, due to voice-over dubbing, lip synchronization is not prioritized. Yeah, and the main objective is simply to make the film accessible to Ukrainian viewers. Because of this, we often observe domestication, concretization, and additional explanatory elements. Like solutions that help convey meaning, but sometimes at the expense of the original phonetic play. So here you will see a fragment with a pun based on a phonetic deviation when Rachel hands her license to the police officer. She deliberately mispronounces his surname. Instead of Hansen, she flirts and calls him handsome. Yet, like a subtle shift that activates humor and a hint of romantic teasing. So in the Ukrainian voiceover, however, this phonetic play is expanded and clarified, and extra words are added to make the situation explicit for the viewer, like a case of concretization. The humor is still present, yeah, but the single word joke becomes heavier and less elegant. Yeah, so let's watch it.
Here you go, Officer Hanson.
It's Hanson.
Oh, sorry, my mistake.
Yeah, like handsome, handsome. And from a phonetic deviation perspective, this is not the ideal solution. Even in a voiceover, the humorous effect could be preserved with a more concise one-word equivalent. One thing that signals that flirtation without over-explaining it. Possible alternatives might include playful single word substitution, such as, for example, красень, красен, or гарний, гагарін, yeah, something like that. So, or any compact variant that keeps the joke short, light, and character-driven. So, using a one-word phonetically altered equivalent allows us to retain the original author's intent, like the comedic nuance and Rachel's style of flirtation, all without breaking the floor flip, yeah, of the scene. So, yeah, to summarize our research and bring the discussion to a close, we would like to emphasize once again that phonetic deviations are highly significant in audiovisual translation, and in many cases, it's better to prioritize flip synchronization and phonetic precision over pure lexical equivalence, because small sound-based shifts often carry humor, characterization, and emotional nuance. So the most efficient strategy, therefore, is to reproduce the original phonetic technique rather than simply translate the word semantically. So when we follow articulation, timing, and rhythm, we not only preserve meaning, we preserve personality. Yeah, it matters. So if you have any questions, we would be happy to discuss them. And on the final slide, you can see our contact details. Feel free to reach out if this topic interests you or if you would like to collaborate further. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your really very, very interesting, amazing presentation. I have a question. Could you please say what strategy was the most influential from your point of view in this research?
Actually, you see, it's very difficult to answer this question because speaking like about phonetic deviations in general, we must pay attention to several layers, yeah, like the structure of the utterance, the type of deviation, and mostly critically, the translation decision or strategies applied. So in our corpus, we identified 3 core translation methods most frequently used to render such deviations, like omission, of course, addition, and substitution. In a few individual cases, we also observed broader strategic choices, such as domestication. Actually, you can see that on the last slide about that Krasny Hanson. Concretization and compensation, each of which help recover part of the original humorous or articulatory effect. But still, I think that it's the best strategy ever is just to use the technique that we have in original message. Yeah, just exactly like the first slide with that word batareya, reya. Yeah. In this case, just the strategy was duplicated in translation, and it's all, yeah.
Thank you very much. I would just like to add that, for example, Lena Tica, she said that in Serbia, they don't have the dubbing of films and everything. And for us, I think it's part of our culture. Yes, it means a lot. And sometimes it makes the TV series or film even more successful because of the dubbing.
yeah.
Thank you for your insightful conclusion to our program, and it was our final presenter. And it brings us to the end of our conference. Olena Ivanina, will you say a word?
Yes, it's my great pleasure. You know, dear colleagues, friends, as we conclude our international conference, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all of the speakers and participants. Today, we had 9 amazing speakers and their presentations and their research. We traveled across different continents from Sweden, Norway, Ukraine, Serbia, Spain, Argentina, through the diverse and thought-provoking research that you shared. We explored different challenges of low resource NLP practices, reflected digital competence in education, examined ethical dimensions of medical interpreting. So we discussed autonomy, algorithms, and English for specific purposes teaching. We traced historical linguistic landscapes. So we also learned how intercultural encounters can be strengthened through global educational initiatives, how students engage digitally in ESP contexts, and how Corpus methods reveal new perspectives in politeness research, phonetical, so on phonetics research. So very good presentations and very good collaboration. Your contributions really have enriched our understanding of language, technology, and communication in truly interdisciplinary ways. Thank you again for your active participation, inspiring discussions. Time management was also very good. Your valuable ideas. I wish you continued success and look forward to our future collaborations, our next meetings at your professional events. We will be happy to take part in your conferences, in your workshops, seminars, everything that you are going to organize in the future. Our department is always open for future collaborations. Thank you again. So it was great success. Thank you. I think that we are going to finish. Maybe there are anything that you would like to say, my dear colleagues, your considerations, maybe something that you would like to say. You're welcome.
I just would like to add that we recorded this conference, so you will be able to access the recording and also the results of the conference at our website. We will send you the links later.
Yes. Okay. So thank you again. I think that we can finish. Goodbye. See you later, my dear colleagues. Thank you.
Hope to see you next year.
Yeah.
See you later.
Thanks a lot.
Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.
Thank